It's that time again. Welcome to Midnight's Edge After Dark Live. I am Tom Connors. With me is the Script Doctor. How you doing?
I'm doing better every day. This cold is pretty much beat. I'm happy.
Very good. Glad to hear. And tonight, a very rare treat. We get both vanilla and chocolate flavors of Pop Culture Minefield. Actually, Gary's more strawberry, so I guess it'll be vanilla and strawberry then. Huh?
And right off the bat, I want to say that I am totally gay for this show.
And that's why you're strawberry. No, we're just kidding. Welcome, Keith. A very rare treat indeed to get you on here with Gary with a J. But
you know what? I again, it's always an honor to be here with you, Tom, and of course, Script Doctor and my brother Gary. So,
indeed, yes.
And let you know, Tom, we had a rough time today with our Jerry Anderson birthday celebration because it got really confusing. People saying my name, or were they saying Jerry Anderson in the chat?
Oh shit! Yeah, I suppose that could be a little confusing, but no, it's Gary, and I just say Gary with a J because most people call him Jerry because of how it's spelled. But yes, Gary and Keith, of course, are the hosts of the Pop Culture Minefield, and they do great work over there. In fact, they've been kicking some ass lately. I hop in once in a while when I can, but I'm glad to see all your guys' success over there, and it's awesome.
Well, we owe it all to you because, we do consider ourselves the illegitimate children of Midnight's Edge, Doomcock, and Nerdrotic.
And that's why we dropped you off at an orphanage.
Yes, that's why. And you don't even show up on
drag
weekends.
Racing on Keith then.
Yeah, I'm doing
Keith lives in a dangerous neighborhood. A lot of white
lives
people.
in the danger zone, I guess, huh?
It's a lot of white
Too many white people out here bombing around in their cars.
I know. Got to keep it down sometimes.
With gas prices so high, it's weird to hear so much auto traffic.
Really? Not around here. People around here don't care. They really don't. If they feel the need for speed, they'll do it.
Man, it must be nice to have disposable income.
Right? And then Ozlek says, "What up, my Ewoks?" Well, he gets one of these. That's right. And welcome to the show, kids. Thank you for being here. I see we got plenty of regulars here. Pop Culture Curator, Mecha J, Fat Elvis, Rob Altus, who's also a member. Thank you for that. We have Hamdinger in the house. Yes, he is here, and so am I, Hamdinger. We got, did I say Donnie Pearson already? If I didn't, hello. We got Pat S. We got Dearest here. We got Action Com here, who does all the timestamps for you guys on Midnight's Edge and Midnight's Edge After Dark. He does a great job with that. We got Goddess of Whim here swinging around a wrench, so behave. We got Kenneth LaRock here. We got Dr. Dragon. He's not just a dragon. He is a doctor, so you can trust him while you're naked. Martin Acosta Santana is here. Welcome, guys, and thank you for being here. We got Judah Khan here, Tekkaman Blade, Brightest Day is in the house. Welcome. How you guys doing? And as Duck Nation says, yes, it is time. We have another guest or two joining us here pretty soon. We're going to be joined by the one, the only Mikey Sutton of Geekosity. So excitement there. And that's another reason why I have you guys here tonight specifically is we got a truckload of DC news jumped on. I should say rumors jumped on.
We're all friends with each other and with Mikey too. So
there is that aspect of it, and it also helps. But you guys are very on top of this stuff, so I was glad to pull you in here on this.
Which reminds me, I gotta mail Mikey a bunch of my business cards so he can just drop them off at all of his friends' places and sources.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Night of Snoke has a question here right off the bat for us. Says, what is your theory on this trend where a show or movie is in development for a long time only to finally come out and they are substandard and the payoff is poor? Well, usually if something's in development hell for a long time, there is a reason for it.
Yep.
Script Doctor, you probably know this best.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is it depends on which stage of development hell you're in. Like, if you're in the early stages of development hell, that's usually a cheap burn of dollars. Like, you're not going to be spending as much. But the moment you start rolling film and you're still developing the story and the project, that's when stuff starts to really get heavy. And it's not in a good mode. And right now, like, The Flash is kind of a pinnacle for it. I mean, I would compare The Flash versus, say, what was it, The Murders at Carnival Row that came out last year, the miniseries.
Right.
That was 20 years in development, but it was development on the screenwriting side, so it was actually very, very cheap. but when it came out, it did well. It was a cheap production. People, I think, what was on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken, it
I
did
think so.
well there. And I think they're kind of continuing it on, not this year, but maybe next year. And then, whereas you have something like The Flash, which it started off as The Flash, then it became Project Flashpoint, then Flashpoint, then Flashpoint Paradox, then Flash again, and then they started adding in the Batman to it, and then Supergirl, and it's basically just a nightmare. And I feel sorry for some of the few directors that got attached and then fired from it. I feel sorry for everyone that's had to come in and try to write their way out of the conundrum that they put themselves in. And I think it's, even with this next year delay and the eventual not so much reshoots but just pickup shots and pickup productions and new scenes that they'll be adding in, I don't think it's gonna do what the original, or achieve what the original intent was, and it's probably just going to follow into the pattern of a bunch of these DC films that are lucky to break 700 million at the global box office.
Yeah,
This is the kind of really work, air quotes, we have seen done with a lot of the DC properties, and it's one of the major reasons why someone like a David Zaslav is just chomping at the bit to change a lot of this stuff, because this is dumb. This is
Right.
dumb stuff that's happening, and it shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
DC, as I've said many times before, has so many characters and IP that would make incredible films. Stuff that you don't even see coming, that have nothing to do with a lot of the heroes and stuff that they're normally associated with. And Marvel's the same way. Both of them have incredible amounts of stories and stuff that they could do that, for whatever reason, aren't touched.
Yeah. And then I think another angle on this, unless this is kind of what Script Doctor was trying to allude to, is if you don't have a clear vision going into this, if you're constantly changing things are constantly in development, unless there's outside forces coming in, then chances are you probably don't have a very good product to begin with. Because if you're kind of meandering around what it's supposed to be, then it isn't that clear of a vision overall, I don't think. I think that's the biggest problem when you get to these things. Like, you can have a story that's in production for years and years and years and years and years, and then when we finally get it, it was a big turd. Well, that was because it was never going to be anything that great to begin with, most likely.
Yeah, it was being pushed by other interests that had their own stakes involved, and that's fair, because sometimes you get a gem out of that.
Right.
But more often you don't. And I think one of the biggest parts here, especially when it comes to DC, is that, number one, they didn't really have a leader of the operations that had a clear vision of what was going on. On top
Thank
of that,
you, Walter.
too, they gave way too much agency over.
Thank you, Walter. Right.
Well, Walter came in later, but I mean before him as well.
Yeah.
Then
It was
they also gave too
before
much
him.
agency to a single director, as opposed to a producer who is more likely going to be involved in other productions as well. And I mean, it's no one should be a stranger to what I feel about Zack Snyder as a filmmaker, and I use that term charitably. But again, a lot of the issues that we're having with subsequent sequels that are coming out in the next couple of years are a direct result of his casting choices and the narrative that he was trying to push, that also went against the narrative that the studio wanted. And it was basically a tug of war going in a terrible direction that never really would have ever allowed them to measure up against Marvel at its peak. And with some of the latest news that's come out with rumors with regard to Zavslav's plan, he's got a great plan. The problem is that because he's in this brand new facet of the entertainment industry, he is not going to be looking in the places he needs to look in order to find the people he needs to achieve his goal.
Well,
and I don't think he's going to find that for at least a year.
You have a $5 super chat, buddy.
Yes, we do. We're going to get into that super chat and what Script is talking about very soon. Night Snoke was just clarifying he meant like television shows and more like Morbius recently. Well, Morbius is an example of something that was just due to Sony's inability to try and get a Spider-Man multiverse off the ground. It was stuck in development hell forever, and this most recent version just got pushed and made because they needed it, wanted it, and it had so many cooks in the kitchen of it. It's kind of like the opposite of Venom, and like kind of like what Script was saying. Once in a while, inside that chaos, something can come out of it on the other end that is That's
enjoyable.
pretty
decent, yeah.
But then at the same time, you can get a Morbius.
Well, Morbius is not a character that deserves a film of its own.
There's a whole argument there too. Yeah.
He is a supporting character and much better used as a supporting character. But I mean, one of the things that I did hear that I wish I was able to speak about earlier, but now I kind of can, is that Sony is still looking to land a third film with Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. And apparently they'd been in talks of that since the image leaked of Andrew Garfield in front of that blue screen. And I don't even know if Andrew Garfield's been aware of that. Like that's
it doesn't sound like he is.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, there's another one. And then Bryant Barth has a question about the Flash movie in a follow-up.
Yep.
What was the original plan for Jeffrey D. Morgan? He was supposed to play the alternate universe Thomas Wayne. That was the initial idea. And I think Andre's going to get into that a little deeper in his next video here. So stay tuned for that, Bryant Barth.
I heard that they shot some footage, but nothing of him in costume.
Probably not. Dearest sends in $5, as Gary pointed out. Says, my like number was 69. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, make sure you hit that like, guys, and hit that share button. Let everybody know that we're live, because we're going to get into the news now. We're going to kick things off, not with DC news, because we're going to save that for when Mikey gets here. Oh, we got another super chat from Hillis Mallory, who sends in $2 and is a member. Thank you for that. Morbius is a victim of a Black Cauldron edit. Part of that is true. I see where you're going with that. Yes, it was clear from what I've heard. I haven't seen it myself, but from what I've heard, it was clearly cut down from an R-rated film. And I think there was even reports that
and they had terrible makeup. I mean,
yeah, well,
all they had to do was give Jared Leto a different nose and some prosthetic teeth and paint him white. That's a 45-minute job, not even. And instead, they just did a CGI mask, which did not translate well at all.
And for those who are curious what he means by that, like possibly got us a whim here, the Black Cauldron was going to be one of the most adult animated Disney films ever made, and at the last minute, they got cold feet and cut it down from, I believe it was rated PG-13, and they cut it down to PG. So like a bunch of scenes got excised, and you can tell where they're cut because they were cut from the final cut, not the actual earlier cuts of the film. So like the music jumps quickly, and it's more grotesque scenes that were cut out, I guess. Some of it still exists, but mostly in storyboard form. Otherwise, it's supposedly been destroyed and not been able to be found. So
there might be audio, but I don't.
Yeah, I think they still have the audio and the storyboards on the DVD, but that's about it. Yeah, it would be nice to see that film completely restored, though. But
yeah.
Disney did a 4K master of it, and it's just the theatrical cut, so chances are they don't have those clips anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Most unfortunate.
Yeah, it is indeed, and I think Hillis is on point with comparing Morbius to that in a way. I think more so with Venom, it felt like that happened. But let's talk about this. This is a show that some of us have been pretty excited for here at the channel. The Offer spins a mafia tale about the Godfather that's a really more fiction than fact. So this is something that the script doctor initially had said when we first watched the trailer, which, yeah, we all knew that was probably the case, because when it comes to these biopic docudrama things, they're never accurate. Like, sadly, I think the one that I'd say the most accurate is probably Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey. And then you get on the other end with stuff like Bohemian Rhapsody, where they just move shit around and make shit up for no good reason.
Even with Rocket Man to a degree, but not
to a degree with Rocket Man. But at least with Rocket Man, I could understand it more because it was more stylized in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But with like my perfect example for Bohemian Rhapsody is, why are they recording "We Will Rock You" in 1980 when the song came out a few years before that, and there's no real reason story-wise you needed to do that? You know what I mean? It just kind of it's just out of place for no good fucking reason. I mean, the story's fairly accurate, but it happened a couple years before that, not then. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with some of the other stuff near the end, like when he found out he had AIDS and all that stuff was all out of whack. But regardless, we know these things happen from time to time, so I'm going to read through this real quick. It is a story steeped in action and intrigue, but is it true? The Offer is a new 10-part series starting April 28th on Paramount+, delivers an inside account of the making of The Godfather. It is a story about stalwart filmmakers who defied bullets and death threats from mafia soldiers to deliver their great saga. but not really. The TV series, written by Michael Tolkien, is loosely based on incidents and anecdotes supplied by Albert S. Rudy, who produced the film. They are vivid anecdotes, but they are at odds with the accounts of principals who made the movie, of which I am one, and who encountered a different reality. The Italian-American activists who took an interest in the project that... Let me make this bigger so I can actually fucking read it. Sorry. The Italian activists who took an interest in the project, in fact, revered Mario Puzo's best-selling novel and were desperate to find a way of mobilizing the film to raise funds for their own causes and charities.
That sentence is also a little wrong because they're trying to imply that Mario Puzo's The Godfather was considered a really, really good book, and it was actually considered trash.
It was, yeah. It was kind of considered a trashy novel at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
They just got lucky that it ended up becoming the #1 selling book while they happened to be making the movie, kind of thing.
And it stayed that way after the movie.
Yeah, exactly. It was just one of those things that, like, I believe, yeah, I think you're right. I think the salaciousness of the novel pushed the sales before the movie, because the movie itself, it represents things in the novel, but it ain't the novel.
No, it is not. And it's also just one of many accounts where Mario Puzo has been rewritten, but still retains sole credit of writing in most cases. Because of...
Well, I think my favorite story behind the book was when he was having dinner in the same restaurant with Frank Sinatra, and Sinatra confronted him in the restaurant. And Puzo just sort of took it in stride and just said, well, you're blonde-haired, blue-eyed. I've got dark hair and dark eyes. So you go to who you're going to go to and see what happens.
Sinatra was called a blonde?
Well, because he's fair-haired. He was never dark-haired. He was fair-haired. But he was taking a shot at him for being Northern Italian while he himself was Southern Italian Sicilian.
Yeah.
And basically threatening Sinatra.
Yeah, dumb move.
Yeah, well, regardless, there's tons and tons of stuff that happened behind the scenes, but they are obviously embellishing it. Pelleggi recalls the presence of important wise guys who were eagerly monitoring the climactic scene in which Marlon Brando... Oh, did I jump? I did jump something here, didn't I?
Yeah, it'd be the
principles of the movies were celebrated, not threatened, recalls Nick Pelleggi, who reported on the film for the New York Times and the New York Magazine, and was only invited to visit the set and speak to the creatives. Pelleggi recalls the presence of important wise guys who eagerly monitored the climactic scene in which Marlon Brando is gunned down. An exterior shot filmed on location in Little Italy. They were applauding, he recalls. They loved the movie. Pelleggi later wrote the book Wise Guys and co-wrote the screenplay for Goodfellas. I was just going to say, that's funny that they bring this up, because this is one thing that I remember from the making of Goodfellas, was that when they made Goodfellas, that was the one that most people who worked in the mob said was more like what it was really like, as opposed to The Godfather, which was a very
dramatic,
not just dramatic, but romanticized version of. And part of the reason they say that is because they believe some of the mob influence on the film, because they did have a lot of real people working on the film who were part of the mafia, and there was some influence, but I don't think it's going to be the way that the show, I should say, portrays it. Let's say, because they were actually.
I would state though that because Michael Franzese was a mobster, and he's got a very popular channel now on YouTube. And he's positive thinker, and he's become a born again Christian.
Well, he's reformed from
he's reformed from his criminal life. But he stated just recently in one of his episodes, because I watch him religiously.
Yeah, I listen to his stuff too. I know
he was talking about how that was the mob that they wanted to be.
Exactly. Yes.
And so a lot of the current mobsters at the time in the 70s looked at that film and started changing how they dressed and how they behaved publicly and with each other. That it had that much of an influence. A movie had that much of an influence on the mob.
Life imitates art.
Yeah, and then again, you had the guys who made The Sopranos, who said that was kind of the whole influence on their show. Is their whole idea was telling the story of the mafia as the first generation after The Godfather. The mafia had been influenced by The Godfather. So like a lot of those guys aspired to be like that, but they were more like the guys in Goodfellas. That's the problem.
Wearing
Yeah.
a lot of sweatpants and velvet suits.
Exactly. So I don't think any of us are real surprised on that. I know Script Doctor is less surprised than all of us because he called it right off the bat that it would probably be.
I just know the tactics. I mean, anything that ever says based on a true story, basically just ignore the true part, and it's based on story.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm still looking forward to that. We may do some kind of review of the show, depending, but yeah, I can't wait for that. But we've got Mikey coming in soon, and we've got some DC news to talk about, along with super chat here from Michael Miller, who says, "Can a TV showrunner be the person to shepherd a DCCU or?"
Well, it's going to be called, most likely it's going to be called Detective Comics Studios. Is probably going to be the umbrella company.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Doubtful that a showrunner would do it, unless they're going to be focusing on the streaming side of things.
Good Lord, hope they don't put Jeff Loeb in charge.
No, they should not be using anyone from the last 25 years of DC Comics in the publishing area. Zaslav.
What about some of the animation guys?
Nope, they're not the same anymore. They're like Bruce Timm is not Bruce Timm.
I agree.
Paul Dini's not Paul Dini, and Dwayne McDuffie sadly has passed away. There's no one from that regime. Maybe you could always get Andrea Romano as a director, but I believe she retired.
Yes, she did.
She hasn't changed much in her style in decades. She's still been doing some pretty great stuff.
One thing I can say for a lot of TV directors and those guys, like Josh in particular, they know how to work a dime probably better than most movie guys, because they're constantly working fast and trying to come in under budget.
Yeah.
And I find that more for TV than for film.
Yeah, but I would be like, if anyone's perusing, say, in like either, even if it's a hybrid between publishing and with film production, be it streaming or features, if they're looking at, say, Jeff Johns, Jeff Loeb, Scott Snyder, any of those guys, just turn them away. Be like, sorry, you had your shot. You did your stuff. We're going somewhere else. Get some hungry people who are willing to like take 4 months out of their life and just catch up on like the greatest hits of every single DC character that is there. And, as Keith has said, there's a lot, and there's a lot of angles that you have to go for. But one of the things you have to kind of remember, and it's a really hard stigma that Warner Brothers is not going to lose anytime soon, is that the Detective Comics are far more colorful and joyful than they are dark and gritty. Mm-hmm. It's only a handful of characters that are in there, and we've only ever really seen one of them, and that would be Batman.
Well, speaking of catching up, because you said catch up, we have the one, the only, Mikey Sutton from Geekosity here. It's good to catch up with you, my friend.
Oh, God, that guy is here. Oh,
I know, man. I know. I saw that bat signal. I had to come. You know what I mean?
Oh.
You know how they have articles about fast food that they don't carry anymore. The Hamada burger about to go extinct pretty soon, so you might want to get your Hamada burgers now before they're all gone.
With
no, he's
sauce?
desperate to hang on to his job.
Get your Hamada burgers now with your choice of Amber or Ezra sauce.
You don't want any sauce coming out of those two.
Yeah.
Act now, and you can get a side of Toby Emmerich.
Oh yeah, the clown table is about to get cleaned up here pretty soon.
yeah, I'll take me a side order of those Toby Tots.
So we haven't really broke into this yet, so I'm going to do that now. Basically, what we have here, though, this dropped right, and I mean literally right after we dropped our video about Amber, and we're working on an Ezra video right now in the Flash. But going off of a lot of your reporting, some of the rumors I've heard, some of the stuff Andre's heard, we've all been hearing similar things. So it's this ship seems to keep going in the same direction, and now we have a little bit more of an update here. But the basic outline of this report from Variety that dropped at about 1:00 this afternoon Central Time. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I got a pretty good breakdown here from the individual who wrote it, I believe. And they stated that the highlights here, if I can find it. I just had it here and then I lost it. That's how organized I am today. Okay. And this came from, I believe, Eric Davis over at Variety, who said they want a Kevin Feige-like leader. That DC lacks a coherent and creative and brand strategy. That they want to revitalize characters like Superman, and they want more stuff like Joker. Now, before we get deeper into this, I just want to say up front, because this is surprising to me, because I thought Zaslav would hold off just a little bit before he jumped too much on the DC train, because I've been hearing rumblings about stuff he was working on. Like Joker 2 was something that was being pushed heavily, I heard. So that matches up with this here. But I was very surprised that here we are, not even a week into his tenure, and he's like, all right, shit's changing. We're going to do some stuff here. So, Mikey, what have you been hearing? What is your take on this? And then we'll get everybody else's feelings on this.
Well, the flash speed that he's been running on lately, it threw me for a loop as well. I scooped back in February 1st on Still Abdul's channel that Zaslav wanted to change DC films, like, make it more consolidated. And possibly either get rid of DC films altogether or turn it into DC Studios, which will combine the TV shows and the comic books.
Make it more like Marvel, basically, yeah.
Exactly, because Zaslav hates layers. I found out months later why he wanted to do that, and it was reported in one of the trades that he hates layers, and it's just unnecessary,
He hates redundant subsidiaries. That's
exactly what it is. Yeah.
Well, and if there's anything we've learned about Warner Brothers, is they are layered as fuck.
Oh, they are. Yeah,
they give onions a run for their money.
Yeah.
all the shit really piles up. You know what I mean? So...
Well, I mean, Warner Brothers has been hemorrhaging money on the DC side of things for 8 years at least.
Yeah,
at least that we were able to discern from their stuff.
Which should have been their bread and butter. Bread and butter should be the DC stuff, right? I mean, that's the thing. These should be the DC stuff should be bankrolling everything else in the studio.
Oh, easily.
Well, the thing is that unlike Star Trek, Detective Comics characters, especially with Batman and Superman, they're not niche to an audience. They're worldwide, global.
Well, especially the main trio. Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that with the amount of money that they're putting into them over the past 15 years or so, it's not garnered the return, and that has nothing to do with the characters themselves. It's really just the fact that there's nobody at the studio that has a clear direction of what they want to do with these guys.
That's problem number one. And number two problem is you have, and this goes back to that original question we had from Night of Snoke, is a lot of these movies have been in nothing but, they've tried to get all these DC movies off the ground that have been in production hell, up to the point where, like, a great example is Superman Lives, where they're literally days from shooting and they shut the fucker down. Same thing with that Justice League movie. They had the cast in Australia.
I had George Miller
built. They had the fucking suits all made.
Yeah.
They had a really good actress for Wonder Woman too. God, she was fantastic. And then,
but this is the part of their problem, and so then that money that's spent on those projects gets shoved into other projects. Hence, that's why even though Superman Returns was technically a success, regardless of how people may look at it, the studio didn't see it as a success because it carried the weight of the two projects prior to it. Yes.
Carried the weight of 15 years of expenses, essentially.
Exactly.
Well, and then don't forget Guillermo del Toro's Justice League Dark movie, which they fired him. They fired him before he got the Oscar.
Now, isn't that the one that basically supposedly JJ picked up? Then is it the same project, or is that something completely?
It's the same IP, but not the same project.
Okay.
Yeah. JJ's doing his own horrible thing. JJ's gonna. I'm not even sure that's gonna get made. Seriously.
Yeah. No, I don't even think JJ's gonna. I think they're gonna cancel his $500 million contract because they haven't given him any money yet. That's just discretionary for when he gets something actually.
Oh, really? Okay, I had no idea. Okay, that makes more sense. Thanks. He hasn't done shit.
Well, then that explains all of the work they're trying to do on trying to get a Star Trek movie made.
Exactly.
Because if he's not making money from Warner Brothers,
I believe that.
Okay, Gary, you just broke up there. Whatever you just said.
Yeah, I was saying that I believe Zaslav has his number.
Have you noticed all of a sudden they had the announcement?
He's got his number.
The script is almost done now. Yeah, right.
Which is BS because here's the thing. Like, what was the movie? Oh, Bad Boys 4. They recently announced just before the Oscar that they got 40 pages done of Bad Boys 4, which is like that is moving at a snail's pace for after the third one. It's like they don't even have anything ready, and then they basically just rolled into the whole Oscar fiasco, said, "Yeah, we're just going to put it on hold for a bit." It's like they had nothing.
Well, are you talking
didn't
about the
hear.
two guys that directed the last one, or
No,
somebody else?
this is
completely?
the writing team that was working on it, and
Did
apparently
they work on the last one too, though?
Yes, they did, but
Okay,
I think
'cause,
because they're occupied primarily with the Batgirl stuff.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was
with
asking.
Someone else.
That's why I was asking. Yes.
And the fact of the matter is that it's been what 8 to 10 months almost, and they've only gotten 40 pages done of a script. It's like that.
On a Bad Boy script?
Yes.
Take that long to write a movie like that?
Funny because that actually got greenlit right after the third film.
It did,
Yeah, I
and
remember that,
it should have been in production before the Oscar ceremony.
I agree, because the third film was the biggest movie of 2019 when it came out. It was the year that the pandemic shut down, 2020, right?
2020,
Yeah, it was the number one film for quite a while.
Well, yeah, it was the biggest movie of that year, believe it or not. So, yeah, I reminded people, yeah, by the way, Will Smith had the biggest movie of 2020, folks. And it was about cops.
And it's basically just Michael Bay's answer to Lethal Weapon, essentially.
Which is even better about this last one, Script Doctor? He didn't direct it. He didn't write it. I think he's only like a co-executive producer, and he's got a cameo in the movie. And it's so much better than the last one. I did not like the second Bad Boys, because the second Bad Boys became every Michael Bayism. You watch the first movie, and you're like, okay, this is a great like homage to things like Beverly Hills Cop and 48 Hours. But it also adds a new kind of spin to it. It's the 90s. The second film, by the time you got to that one, because he didn't shoot it for like 5-6 years, I think it was, that film has every single Michael Bay problem in it. It's overbloated, overlong, 20,000 slow motion blow up sequences, fucking Martin Lawrence getting shot in the ass, all that bullshit. But like, no, back to DC, and this is the thing is, Mikey here is, we've been hearing this, and now, I mean, I guess to go back to Michael Miller's super chat, a TV runner could possibly take over DC, but what they need is somebody who has, and this is what Zaslav wants, somebody with the wherewithal or the idea, the foresight,
the
like
business acumen and the understanding of the genre.
Thank you, like Kevin Feige has. So, like, take us from there. What do you think his best choices are for that in this case? Because Script has a take on that too.
Well, let me take you back in time to when I first heard about this. When I first started covering Zaslav, I mean, I know he's a businessman. I'm a businessman first. That's right. When I was talking about Restore the Snyderverse and what his intentions would be, I was focusing all on money. And I say he's not doing this because he's Snyder fanboy or whatnot. He's doing this because he sees the money there. And he is a franchise guy, which is why he has problems with Toby Emmerich. Emmerich does not do well with franchises. Whereas
he doesn't do well with anything.
Okay, I'm being too polite.
You are being very polite. In fact, I said, and this is Andre and I talked about possibly doing a video about him, and I'm like, it'd be short. Name one hit the studio has had outside the Batman trilogy. Go. Video over. Exactly. He has done nothing for that.
That's
studio.
the hardest Jeopardy question ever. You know that.
Go through his filmography that he's had any attachment to. None of them are hits, and in the few that actually are, were sequels to hits already.
Yeah.
But he's also responsible for shit like The Mask 2, or Son of the Mask, or whatever.
Oh, God.
Shit like that.
Son
Exactly. Like, that's my point, is most of his stuff is the lesser of all of them. Blade 3, Goldmember, that kind of crap when it came to New Line. And then when he jumped over to Warner Brothers, outside of the Dark Knight trilogy, which I don't think he has any real attachment to, there's been
was
no
in the
hit.
room at anything, as far as I know.
Exactly. I don't even think he's on there as a co-executive producer for those. Maybe for the Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, I think he is. But that's just because he's the head of the fucking studio, right? Like, other than that, there's been no other hits for Warner Brothers. Name one. And that's what I said to Andre. I'm like, name one. Like, they haven't had one. They have not had a hit. If you don't, even if you count the Godzilla films, those have been meandering until the last one, and the last one could have been a big hit, but it, suffered the pandemic and HBO Max. So, and that's not him. That's Legendary. So.
He can't even get credit for that either.
Not really.
He wasn't even involved with the Austin Powers films at New Line.
No,
either, was he?
Not really. Not initially. No, he was the music director of New Line Cinema. That's what he did.
Well, explain why Wonder Woman 84 has the worst soundtrack ever for an 80s
Thank
movie.
you.
Right? I mean,
Motherfucker
come
knew what
on.
they could do with it. Didn't even offer. Be like, look, we got all this music here, buddy. Yeah. I used to do this shit. Yeah. No, Toby is worthless. Toby's fucking claim to fame is he stole the story for Frequency and got sued, and then got sued by another person who was supposed to be a producer on the film.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
he is
And settled out of
basically
court.
the spiritual brother to Alex Kurtzman.
Basically, yeah.
No, because they have a very similar pattern.
I keep saying that on our show, that Kathleen Kennedy too, and Chris Chibnall, Greg Berlanti, they're all cut from the same fucking rock.
And
It's a dumb rock, by the way.
It's a pine
Yes.
cone that thinks it's a rock.
yeah, so I was hearing rumblings about this back in, actually January. I dropped it on February 1st. That I was like, wow, they're really going to get rid of DC films. And what I was hearing is that he wanted to consolidate everything, and he really hates the multiverse thing, where everything is not connected with each other, because he feels that if you're going to build a franchise, you got to make them connect. That way, people will watch something they normally wouldn't watch because it's part of a larger framework. And he was sounding this alarm before. Now, Toby Emmerich is the total opposite of that. He feels that now we'll make everything stand alone because he didn't have the vision to connect everything. And so that was one of the issues that Toby and Zaslav had. They really on the opposite sides of the fence in that.
Well,
But
Zaslav learned-
Toby's not well liked, by the way. I can't find a single insider who he's great. No, they really despise him, man. So there'll be no tears shed when he's gone. But he's gonna stick around just for a transition because they need someone to replace him.
That's
It's been
what
public
I've heard.
now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I've been hearing too. Is
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
'cause I'm like, how the hell is this idiot still around?
Well,
Yeah, right.
He has a good contract. But the other part too, the reason Zaslav understands the connectivity aspect is because they did that on some of the shows that are on Discovery Plus and the Home and Garden Network TVs and all those stuff. They crossed over some of the hosts and whatnot, and it just increased ratings. And this goes into a psychological aspect as well, which is people really love to be able to create associations between franchises. That's why the spin-off series Frasier was such a huge hit after Cheers. That's why whenever you had characters that crossed over from one show to another, it was the highest rated episode of that time. I think the Friends had a cameo from some characters from Mad About You, and that boosted Mad About You's ratings for the first time in like 2 years, just because they did that. It's really important to have that type of solidarity, and I think Zaslav if he doesn't want to do the multiverse thing, he's probably seeing for what it actually is, which is multiverse is just the next stage of the reboot or the reimagining or the reboot qual or whatever you want to call it. That's all the multiverse is. It's just saying, oh, we can make a remake of this while we still have the other one hitting video on demand this season, and no one's going to care because we have the excuse of multiverse, and that is going to cause that's what ends up fracturing your universe. And we've already started seeing that because of how close together The Dark Knight Rises, Superman Returns, and Man of Steel were just in that 5-year period.
You also had Green Lantern in between there too, yeah.
But nobody knew where Green Lantern fit within all those.
It was meant to be, but it was meant to kick off a DC universe that didn't happen, much like that
Greg
Dracula
Berlanti
Untold,
is the only writer that can basically give impotence to Campbell, who's considered the resurrection king of franchises. It's like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So okay, let's take on another point of this, because a bunch of people are already asking in the chat, specifically like Martin Aldana here. So no Snyderverse. Is that what you're saying,
happening.
Mikey?
No, Snyderverse is definitely happening.
That's
one of
being
the
closed out,
things.
is my understanding. Yeah.
It's one of the things that Discovery wants to do, again, is exploiting IP, and they really want to exploit the Snyderverse IP with different spin-offs and everything for HBO Max, and Zaza feels that they had the right idea with the DCEU. Let's put it that way. They had the right idea, but those films were butchered, and he feels that they dropped the ball on those movies, and this is why when I first started reporting on Discovery, because all I knew back then, this guy's a businessman. All he looks at, he saw the numbers for HBO Max and Zack Snyder's Justice League. He was impressed by what he saw. I did not know he's actually a fan of Henry Cavill. I had no idea. That was until a few months ago where I was starting to learn these things. But that's beside the point, though. I mean, he can be a fan of anything that he wants to, but if it doesn't make money, if he didn't see potential in it, he wouldn't go forward with it. Um, but with the Snyderverse, yeah, he sees the potential there. He sees the social media engagements. He sees wow HBO Max did with it, and it's something he can just like, okay, we'll just continue this.
Well, he sees the guaranteed money that's there,
Exactly,
but I don't
it's
think.
there.
But the other part too is like I don't know if he's really looking at what the potential budgets of those are going to be because they're going to be way bigger than he expects. Because right now, and Zack Snyder's doing something which he did during the start of the pandemic is he's teasing, a theatrical cut of this film because
Yeah.
he knows that the studio is going to need a theatrical release because they're I think they have 2 windows open that they haven't filled yet. And
Hmm.
I think Snyder's trying to basically just do the same thing that he did for HBO Max because again, before the pandemic hit, no one was ever going to give Snyder the time of day on that stuff. And then when they realized they couldn't go into production for some of the projects that they wanted on HBO Max, the only thing they had that they could do cheaply, or at least what they thought was cheaply, ended up being twice as much as what they expected, was the Snyder Cut. And even though it did great numbers for HBO Max, um, when you tabulate the budgets between what Zack Snyder originally spent before he was taken off the project, what Joss Whedon put in, what he spent on top of for the Zack Snyder Justice League's Snyder Cut, as well, you're looking at close to like a $400 million production. And if he adds into this thing where I think he's recut and converted from the IMAX footage to 35 for like a 2 to nearly 3 hour cut of the film, if he throws another price tag on that, it's probably going to be a minimum of $65 million. That's going to be the most expensive film that's been resold 3 times to an audience, which is literally it's something to like tip your hat to and be like impressed by. But from a production standpoint, it's basically a con game, and
Well,
it
if
works. But I mean,
yeah.
it's just they're not getting anything really new out of it. They just keep spending more money on the same product that's being reformatted over and over again.
Well,
Well,
I think
if you think about it though, okay, the reason why the original film ballooned so much is they had Joss Whedon take over.
Yeah.
And it would have made a lot more money if they had released the original cut to begin with. That's the central
4
argument
hours in
here.
theater, I don't think that would have made much money in the 4 hour theater.
Maybe not, like what I mean is without having Joss Whedon like butcher it the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a shorter film but still having not getting the like for instance the cyborg stuff was the heart of the film. That was completely taken out. And the tonal differences.
I still think you could have done a Snyder cut at roughly 2:45 because watching that 4 hour version, I've said it, because a lot of it is the same stuff. It's just elongated. Because people have done the YouTube videos out there where there's just a lot of it's establishing shots and stuff like
it's
that.
Inflated. That's
inflated, exactly. Yeah. Well, you could
That's
really
what
kind
she
of trim
said.
it down still.
Yeah, basically that's what Zack Snyder did. He took the Swedish-made penis enlargement pump and put it to the Zack Snyder Justice League, and then
Exactly.
dropped it on HBO Max.
It's not mine, baby. I swear.
But
It's not-
it's you have a choice here. You either superhero films are going to cost money no matter what, right? They're going to cost
Yes.
you the Batman cost $200 million by itself.
Which
and
300? I heard only 200.
no, it's $200 million is how much it is the Batman
Okay,
cost.
I thought you said 300. Yeah.
No, it's 200. Yeah.
My bad. Sorry.
And it's this maybe it'll break even right now because look, it's the more time a movie's in the theaters, the less money they get from the theaters, right? I mean, it's still crawling its way to 750 million. That's not gonna be enough for it to
That
break
actually
even.
brings me to my next question, Mikey, because
Yeah.
that was the other thing, because I personally was hearing like the Joker 2 definitely happening. Zaslav's pushing for that. I also heard he was waiting to see how the Batman panned out. Now that I've been hearing back, they weren't as happy with the box office on that. They were expecting a little bit more, like Spider-Man. Is that kind of what you've been hearing too? How does that fare for the future of the Batman?
Yeah, in fact, I have an article coming out because probably tonight about how they expected $1 billion from the Batman for it to even make a profit because it cost so much. And so they're happy with the way it did for Robert Pattinson's first Batman film, in touch with COVID and that 45-day window.
It probably performed on par with Batman Begins, I'd imagine.
Right, yeah, around there, you know.
With
unless you adjust it for inflation.
Well, even then, maybe not, but yeah.
Also, Batman Begins had a far more modest budget.
I do want to say that Keith and I pretty much called it from day one that it wasn't going to break $1 billion.
Well, I think most people thought it wasn't, but no, I mean, it is kind of alarming, though. I could see from their perspective of it's Batman, and it didn't get anywhere near that $1 billion, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, and then that's an issue because they thought this would do better than Joker because it's Batman.
Exactly.
Right? Batman has a top Joker, and no, it did not. You know, and China was never a factor, by the way. The Batman films have never done that great in China. So that was never a factor. But they thought that, hey, if Spider-Man No Way Home can make this much, this could at least, make 900 million. Okay? And it's not. Far from there. Far from there.
No, but you're right. It should have, Mike, and that's what I'm saying. So does that put the sequel in jeopardy at all? Is that part of what Zaslav is saying about a more connected universe outside of the Joker? Because he specifically said that, but and I didn't hear nothing about Batman.
That's a great point.
Or we shouldn't say. Let me rephrase that. He didn't say this. This comes from this report.
Yeah. The sequel is going to happen. What they're looking at now, Tom, is that they're looking at return on investment in the future for this franchise. But I will say this. I keep hearing from multiple insiders telling me that Matt Reeves can't make the same kind of movie the second time around. He's got to make some concessions, like a shorter film than this one. Also, this movie did not get the female audience, which is ironic because that's why Warner wanted Pattinson so bad. It's a mostly male crowd that went to see this. So you might see more of an emphasis on Catwoman in the next one. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. But it's too long. That's one of the things that they discuss. Okay, this film was too long. It's too dark. Okay, so you're going to lighten up a little bit second time around.
So we're going to get Batman Forever.
I don't think it's going to go that far, but
you're going to get.
No, I know, but yeah.
But I like that movie, though.
No, I do too. But I mean, we're going to have the same.
Schumacher cut.
You seem to really like the nipples.
But my point is, you're going to have that.
I can't resist the nipples, Gary.
No, I actually enjoy the film too. But my point is you're going to have that same kind of quick twist in the tone. I think
it's going to be a production overhaul, essentially. That's
a production overhaul.
Well, and here's the other thing. Did you hear anything, Mikey? Like we were hearing that Matt Reeves and Pattinson didn't really get along anyway, so that could be a good out for Reeves, anyhow.
Yeah, because I read that a lot too.
Yeah, at the time, I was hearing the total opposite at the time, so no, I didn't hear that.
I've heard so many different sides of it, so yeah, but I mean, that's the thing.
They may have had differences. I'm not sure. I didn't hear it at the time.
And on that note, as far as Matt Reeves goes, well, on the note of Matt Reeves, this barely beat his last Apes film, which.
Think about that for a second. It's Batman. Yeah. It's Batman.
Put that in perspective. That's the thing, is they were making a big deal out of it being his highest grossing film, but it's like, it's just barely crawling past the last Planet of the Apes film, which, don't get me wrong, I was a huge fan of that franchise.
Film. I liked it.
But it's not a 4-quadrant franchise either, to where it's supposed to make money like Batman. So I guess moving past that, then the Superman thing, I'm sure that's something a lot of people are interested in, and we're going to get to some super chats here. What have you been hearing about Superman? Because that's something that everybody's been worried about, especially since we've been hearing that Superman might possibly being replaced with Supergirl in the Flashpoint film.
That's so good. Well, deep into that, but
ain't gonna happen.
About a year or so ago, after the merger was announced, I was hearing from insiders that, and I reported this on Still's show, probably on my site as well. It all blurs together. I was saying that Discovery wanted to emphasize Superman more, and that now it's like deja vu when I saw this article. I'm like, yeah, I reported this a year ago. I remember I was hearing that Superman, it's a fact, is one of the most familiar IPs in the world. Everybody knows Superman, right? I mean, and Superman and Batman, and then they've sat on that character for how many years now since Man of Steel? I mean,
8.
8 or 9, right?
Well, they even
And
struggled to get Man of Steel off the ground.
yeah, because we don't know how to do Superman. Like, what?
You get
He
somebody who
has
understands
to be
him. That's
a
all.
Boy Scout.
Just
how you
consult
know
Richard Donner.
Well,
Amen.
Donner passed away, so the only one who's left is basically Joe Johnson.
Well, I meant back in 2012, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, or Joe Johnson. There you go. I mean, he would have been perfect. But they've sat on this property for so long. That's one of the things that frustrated Zaslav was like,
I've said Joe Johnston before too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, why are you not going to do anything with Superman? And so now this whole thing about Supergirl replacing the Flash. Okay, this is how it goes. Barry Allen's going to create what I call a Flashpoint timeline. I wrote about this months before everybody started talking about it. Where because of his shenanigans going back and forth in time, he changes things, and so
God damn it,
Supergirl. Yeah, Well, Barry, what did you do? I guess he's going to erase. I guess Ezra Miller's going to erase himself now. But anyway, so in this Flashpoint timeline, Supergirl is the lone Kryptonian of Metropolis. Now, keep in mind, I said in this timeline because it's a pocket universe. What Emmerich's plan was with Walter Hamada was to put everything in pocket universes. Okay, that way Cavill Superman still exists in the Snyderverse. So when Snyder comes back, he can revive it and do what he wants with the character. But in this timeline, it'll be Supergirl. And that'll show the audience that, okay, look, he fucked up. And this is a different timeline, different universe than the other ones. Because J.J. Abrams wanted his own universe too. He wanted his own pocket universe. He's like, get off my lawn. You can't use my characters. Like, yeah, like why would you want to use your Constantine? But anyway, and so Snyder will have his own universe, which he really wanted his own thing anyway. So Greg Berlanti's on his own thing, and everything is separated. So that's why I think the whole Henry Cavill story has been overblown because he's not gone from DC Films. He's just gone from this Flashpoint timeline, which at this point isn't even valid because it's like 15 months from now the film's coming out. Ezra's in trouble. Who knows how this film's going to change by then? Because I'm telling you, Zaslav is not happy about the whole Ezra Miller situation. He feels that like a baptism of fire. He comes in through the door, and Will Smith slaps Chris Rock. Ezra Miller's arrested. Like, what the hell am I getting into?
Then the whole Amber Heard debacle.
Amber Heard, no.
I want to get into that, but we need to get onto some of these super chats. So before we get into,
can I make one quick point?
Please,
about Superman?
and then before we get to, then we're going to get into the Ezra Amber situation.
They need to just shut up and let Henry Cavill decide how Superman is done, because since his first interview, he has proven time and time again to be the only one who seems to understand who Clark Kent and Superman is.
Well, and I'm under the impression, Mike, that they don't have actually a contract right now, an actual valid contract for him. Like, I believe from what I heard, the last appearance in Justice League was the last contracted thing, and they haven't come back to him.
Well, here's what part too, right? So if I were Zaslav and I have these issues of Ezra Miller and Amber, I would basically sit down the person that cast them, which would be Mr. Snyder, and be like, why did you cast them? What did you know about them beforehand? And if you really think I'm going to invest in you, you better give me a damn good reason as to who you would replace these people for, because I don't know what other people have heard of, but like I remember in the earlier days when Zach was actually lobbying for these two to be in his film. And it's like if a director's lobbying for these two and they're bringing in this much trouble, that you have to go to the source as well as address the results. And I don't know if Zaslav is being fed that information where has to be like, listen, these two problems are a result of the guy could very well give us some guaranteed money with some further productions. Do we really want to do that? Because if he's that good of a judge of character, and I'm using good air quotes here, whoever he gets replacement, whoever he adds on to, could also be just as big liabilities as well, because he clearly doesn't know people from a hole in the wall.
Well, I don't think Ezra Miller had that kind of reputation before he was, because he was in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, right? And he was
also
getting...
in Trainwreck, and there's a couple of Nightmare Stories that appeared on that production from him, his scenes as well.
He was good in. My daughter was a fan of his because he was good in those indie films.
Yeah,
and I think that's what Zach.
Well,
was looking at.
I think
when Nick Cage says, "I'll never work with Amber Heard ever again," after that one movie, I mean, that should be.
I was gonna say, I think Zach's got questionable taste when it comes to picking actors. He's got less than a 50% percentile deal there on that part. But let's get to some of these super chats, and then we'll talk about some Ezra and Amber news before we lose Mikey here. Hillis Mallory says, "Make a Guy Gardner Warrior movie."
That'd be great. That'd be awesome. But Guy Gardner, he's in the Greg Berlanti Green Lantern series.
Yeah.
I always like Guy Gardner.
You know who'd be a perfect Guy Gardner? John Cena. I thought John Cena is Guy Gardner.
Right?
Hey, come on, he's got Guy Gardner. He got the haircut.
Haircut.
Chain. Nephilim says Snyder can do no wrong. He's a based director. I don't know how based he really is.
He is not based.
He's barely a director.
I think maybe Nephilim's being.
Videos.
I say Nephilim might be being sarcastic here. If they are not, I am sorry, but yes. He may make movies that appear based on the surface, but if you listen to him talk for any minute, he's not very based. He's pretty woke. John Apocalypse says, "Hey Mikey, what's this stuff with Black Widow 2 with Omega Red that you may have been talking on your site?" So this is a switch over to Marvel side of things, but John wants to know what you were talking about with Black Widow 2 real quick.
Yeah, Omega Red is the planned villain for Black Widow 2. Still very early stages though, but Omega Red is what they're leaning towards in terms of a villain for the sequel, which will happen. Just give it time.
There you go. And then we have Hillis Mallory here, who says if they do the Snyderverse, it will be a lighter tone and change direction from the future dream trash. I think you're right, Hillis. I think Mikey is kind of honest. I think they're going to continue down the road that Snyder set, but I think what he's trying to say is they need somebody who's a bit better creative to oversee this. I think they're happy with some of the cast and stuff like that, but as I said, I think we're going to talk about Ezra and Amber, and there's been some rumors going around about both. So
once the next of the old guard of DC films hits, I'm pretty sure Zaslav is going to see the numbers on the wall and be like, well, we've already spent our money on this. We might as well close it out, give the fans what they want, and then start from fresh once that's done, which would be like a 2026, 2027 timeline.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
He's none of these. I'll happily admit it when I'm wrong, but I guarantee you, none of these movies that are coming out are going to reach $1 billion.
Oh, I think you're right on that part. Script,
and that's the biggest thing. Like Zaslav, when he makes that comparison with Kevin Feige for DC Studios, he's basically wanting to guarantee that the minimum threshold of box office take will be $1 billion, and it's not going to happen under the current.
Well, here's the problem too, Script, and you and I've talked about this before, that you've got to get your budgets down because
there's that as
the
well.
Cinema has changed. How people go to movies has changed,
and the budgets are going to be a problem.
Lower budget, better chance of return.
And there are a lot of characters within DC that you don't need to spend a lot of money on. You could do a Dead Man movie for about $35 million. The kind of budgets that you're looking at, lower budget type films, there's a lot of DC characters that would fit within that would be just as exciting as anything you've seen.
You can and you can't. Here's the thing, and this is how we know.
Nitpicking the hors d'oeuvres.
Well, and I bring this up because Deadpool kind of gave us a gauge on this, right?
Yeah.
We saw a situation where they were boasting about the fact that they made the movie for between $60 and $80 million, and then they got sued afterwards because they didn't pay the animators in the CGI department, even though there's not a shit ton of CGI in that movie. But right there tells you where they saved around $20 to $40 million. So the threshold on these movies, even like the minimal ones like Batman and stuff like that, where there probably isn't a shit ton of CGI, you're still looking at a minimum of $100 to $120 million on these movies.
Yeah.
Which is a reasonable budget for those guys. Yeah.
Well, look at Ant-Man. Ant-Man didn't cost that much to make, and
There's
that's what.
there's the exception. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but even Ant-Man has a lot of special effects in it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think if you chose the right kind of character and went sort of the Blade route with characters that may not be that familiar with the general public, but who have incredible stories to tell. I think if you attack it from two ends, I think you could reach something that would be good. Not fantastic, but good at making you some money and giving you characters that'll become more familiar, to which then people would be, they would probably take a chance on in the future.
Well, they need to utilize the CW route a little bit more, and I don't mean the CW itself or those shows. What I mean is you need to take a smaller world approach to these other characters, because here's the thing you're going to run into when you get into the studio system. They're going to go, okay, nobody knows who Bubble Guy is, right? So how do we sell Bubble Guy? Well, then you get Tom Cruise to play Bubble Guy. That's how you sell Bubble Guy. Well, then there goes your budget again, right? That's the problem you run into. Either you're spending it on special effects, or you're spending it on
two perfect characters that DC films can do right now on a reasonable budget that can make a ton of money. And one is the Question. Yep. Why are they not doing anything with the Question? You have your dark Batman figure there. That's not Batman, right? He's got no face. He looks cool, right?
Well, the no-face makeup is very cheap to do. He looks cool. He does grounded mysteries and huge conspiracies. But the problem is that there isn't any writer associated with the people at Warner Brothers, even Warner Discovery right now, that knows how to tackle that genre.
Yeah, that problem.
And they're never going to have any confidence in the outside teams that are going to come in and be able to do it well. Because
you can do a Sin City like type of the Question, you know.
My point was though, is at least with something like on a television or HBO Max level, you can introduce some of these lesser known characters and not have to worry about having a big star to sell them and get people more into them.
When you do the marking of who is the Question and you never reveal his face, even though we, like anyone who reads comics, know who.
Well, and the beauty of a character like that is you can get away with doing a voice most of the time too. So then you can bring in somebody a little bit bigger to do a voice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you can also create, something like on the line something along the lines of you could take Checkmate, Operation Checkmate, and do kind of a spy thriller. And you don't really need to have a lot of outrageous visual effects. You could take this a couple steps below Kingsman, but right around what you would get for a Bourne movie, and do that, because there's a lot of IP involving spies. And you could have all these incredible characters name drop like crazy for that entire world.
Oh, yeah. Checkmate versus Queen Bee.
Well, and I know for a fact they've been trying to get a Plastic Man movie off the ground for a while. We learned of that from Robert Shea, but
that's like one of my favorite characters as a kid, man.
I've been hearing about Plastic Man since the comic scene days.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Spielberg optioned it. I think Jim Carrey was supposed to be.
Yeah, Robert Shea's been behind it for a while. He told us about it when I talked to him. But
really?
And then they also Spielberg also wanted to do the Blackhawks. As well.
He's probably the one who got Jim Carrey involved. To be honest with you, he probably because they had their big deal with. He kind of gave us the scoop on that whole thing because they got screwed between The Mask and Mask 2 and Dumb and Dumber because he became this huge star. So they got him for dirt cheap for The Mask, but then Jim took him over the coals for Dumb and Dumber and a Mask 2 that never happened.
Oh man, I first saw the option for Black Hawk in 1982 in Starlog. And I've been waiting for it since then. Like, where's my Black Hawk movie? Like 40 years now. Where is it? You know?
But yeah, as soon as Robert saw him in The Mask, I think that was where he's like, yeah, he's probably perfect for Plastic Man. But Nikki D says, unpopular take, Bad Boys 2 is the favorite of my franchise. I wouldn't say that's unpopular. A lot of people actually like that film. I'm just one of the outliers. As a lifelong Miami resident, the jokes and setting feel more authentic. The jokes and action scenes in the third felt comparatively flat and boring. Me personally, I just felt like the third film had a more coherent story and was more focused. The second film to me felt like it was all over the place because like the first film has such a tight story with the idea of, the one girl being a witness played by Tia Leone, and you have, Mike and Mark having to flip roles and all that business. And it works on a level of just a typical comedy, right? It doesn't even have to be an action Bad Boys kind of movie. it could have been just any kind of comedy film. So that works in its favor. To where the third film I felt got more into the characters again, where the second film just kind of felt glossy and generic, like a Michael Bay film. But I totally understand people who like it better.
Hey,
So
I gotta go in a few minutes because I just want to bring up Ezra and Amber really quickly here before I go.
sure.
Uh,
Oh, you got
And I have one question for you before you go too, Mike. It's
Okay,
important.
sure, yeah. So, in terms of Ezra Miller, Zaza was not happy at all with the fact that he wasn't fired to begin with.
Yeah,
with
we
the
reported on this today ourselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
the fan choking incident.
And we talked
Uh,
about it after you said something too.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm not sure what they're gonna do with him. My prediction is that he won't be around for the sequel. That's my prediction.
Is there even going to be a sequel?
Well, you're right. Yeah, that's the thing too. But apparently, he was really good in this film. Though I did hear that he did deliver a really good performance in this.
No,
movie.
they'll finish it up. They'll probably cut her out and reshoot it. If not,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say right now, but I do believe that's one of the main reasons it was pushed back. Is that what you heard too?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and in terms of Amber Heard, I didn't even know this until today. Actually, it was Toby Emmerich that kept her on.
Yeah, that's what it
Uh,
sounded like from
yeah.
Hamada's.
Yeah.
He was actually a part of the case yesterday. He was, I think, piped in through Facebook. Andre said, I didn't
Yes.
actually get to see it.
3 hours.
But yeah, he said he didn't like her in the movie. Didn't care for her performance. Felt that she had zero chemistry with Momoa, and against his call, he got pressure from above. He didn't say who, but there's only a few people above him.
Yep. There you go. There you go. But anyway, guys, I have to. Gary,
before
want
you
a
go,
question? Yeah.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, so
You've please, Mikey, please. I've asked you as a friend on the day of my daughter's wedding. We got to find out if this is true. Because
I'm
it's
looking
got a lot
into
of
it.
people freaking out.
Yeah, I'm looking into it. I will let you know as soon as.
yeah, that's something else that's been going around. Although I thought
That
that,
doesn't seem right.
yeah,
It
is that
seems
stuff that's been on
crazy.
there for a while though.
No, a
It's-
couple of those are new.
Yeah,
The
these
Dracula
are
one
new.
has been on there for a while. The Frankenstein film has been on there
Or
for a while.
I see he's on as like a producer. Is it because he signed on to that other shit and he's attached to it now via?
We
because
just
Blumhouse has taken over the monster universe.
Yeah, but
and
did he
they've
have
done
some
such a
stipulation in
tremendously
his
bad job
contract,
with it too.
like an Amy Pascal stipulation with Spider-Man? JJ's done similar shit.
Oh yeah.
They
So I
had
wouldn't
such
be
a good
surprised.
chance with Guillermo del Toro.
Do you know anything, Mikey,
Well,
on that or no?
Del Toro takes too long to make anything, so that's why they'll never rely on him.
Man, I wish Del Toro had done Justice League Dark. I mean, he wrote the script already, and
Yes.
they said it was too weird. I'm like, what? What?
That's fine for Justice League Dark.
Exactly right. I'm like,
They need to pull him in as not the director, but
Yeah.
as the guy that oversees the project.
I'm going to tell you this. I don't know, since it doesn't sound like Mikey knows much about this, Gary, I'm going to go with my gut on this and say that he found himself a way to hook himself into this somehow via an Amy Pascal clause.
Like with his initial contract with the Mummy,
Yeah.
that he was able to dig his teeth
I
in.
think so. I don't know if he's
why,
really going
but
to have that much to do with, because
I
Blumhouse is a
feel-
very powerful guy. I don't think he's going to allow Kurtzman to
Jason
come
Blum
in.
is.
I hope not, because I'm starting
Jason
to feel
Blum,
a lot
yeah.
like Jim Carrey's character in Ace Ventura when he finds out that the captain is not a woman but a man, and he made out with her, and he starts doing the plunger and throwing up. It was
Einhorn is
feel.
a man.
yeah. I just feel like
Sean
that right
Young.
now. Every time I see Kurtzman get something.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Okay,
baby.
guys.
Yeah.
Thank you
I
for your
gotta
time,
go.
Mikey.
It was great
Take
being
care,
here,
Mikey.
Tom, Barry, Keith, Script Doctor. Hey, I'm
Love
meeting
you,
Will
Mikey.
Shatner. I'm meeting William Shatner in June. Looking forward to seeing
Oh,
Captain Kirk.
And
in
hey,
person.
get a hold of me about that coloring.
Oh yes, I will
I
do.
met him for like 5 seconds and got his autograph. He didn't even really acknowledge me very much, but tell
Oh
him.
really?
And you got
Tell him I
to
love
get
him.
him to agree to spreading the word about just got shat on or shatting on.
Well, he just lagged it.
somebody hashtag.
Yeah.
You know, because shatting and chat should be used whenever you insult somebody.
Yeah, I love his music though. He's got some great music out there. All right, see you guys.
Take
Have a
care,
great
brother.
day.
Thanks
Bye,
for being
Mikey.
here.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Yeah.
With that, we've got some super chats to get through here. 32 flavors of Nick Weiser's in the house. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, Nick.
Sends in $20. Says Justice League would have underperformed at the box office regardless of who is directing it. Normies see superheroes and not who is involved. Geeks and nerds see who are involved. Justice League suffered because of the sins of the father, aka BBS. Yes, you're 100% correct here. This is exactly what happened. Same reason why BBS underperformed was because people weren't as turned on by Man of Steel, and then word of mouth got around about BBS, and then people who saw that didn't go see the other films either. So,
Well,
It's
yeah, I
also
mean,
the
you have
same
to
thing that
give,
happened at Solo.
yeah,
I think
you
it
have to
actually
give
cost
quality.
one. I was gonna say it. Actually, I think it cost Wonder Woman its $1 billion at the box office. But go ahead, script. Sorry.
Well, I mean, it goes down to the fact that you have to provide quality over spectacle. I mean, that's the other part too. The biggest talk about town, especially when, because again, when I was in Hollywood at the time when it hit theaters, and the biggest talk was like, you'll never believe what they did to Superman in Man of Steel, and it was not positive stuff. It was a lot of negative stuff, and then that movie only I think cleared like 680 million worldwide. And then you start hearing like, and my girlfriend at the time was an accountant at Warner Brothers, and she was like freaking out because as they said they didn't even make the money that they needed to for it, and they've already greenlit like a sequel, and she's like, it's going downhill. And lo and behold, what was it? Comic-Con 2 years later, that's when Snyder announces it's Superman versus Batman, and then it gets changed to Batman v Superman, and then Affleck gets signed on, which I thought was a pretty cool choice. But when you have two of the biggest tentpole characters of Detective Comics that are known worldwide, and it can't even clear $1 billion proper, because what was it, 800 million it did worldwide, I think. That says
like
a
853,
lot
I
about
think.
not just the characters. It says that the characters were able to get 800 million, and the direction of it wasn't able to get $1 billion. And that, regardless of what you think, whether it's like all Zack Snyder or there's meddling with the studio, all of those things are technically true at this point. And yeah, I mean, listen, they got a guaranteed audience, which is why I'm very confident that they're going to at least give us one more Justice League movie. At that, but I think once, what's the first one's coming out? Aquaman or the Flash?
I think Aquaman's next.
So we'll have to see how Aquaman does, and if Aquaman breaks $1 billion and proves my speculation wrong, there might be a chance for it. But I don't think that's going to happen, just because there's too much stuff working against this take on these characters at the moment right now. I mean, I tip my hat to the Snyder Bro fans because they're throwing a lot of money on advertising. Basically, they're giving Warner Brothers free advertising. They're spending a lot of money on it, and I don't think anyone at Warner Brothers would be dumb enough to say no. Let's not take advantage of the free advertising that we're getting. Let's do something with this. But it's not gonna give them the monies that they need, especially if Zaslav's mandate of echoing Marvel Studios ends up being true. They have to start making movies that'll break $1 billion. And we have enough of a pattern to show that's not going to happen with the direction that they're currently taking.
Yeah. Nephilim says, let's have a vote. Snyderverse versus J.J. Abrams verse. Well, we haven't seen a J.J. verse, but if I had to choose one, I'd take an overhauled Snyderverse. If I had to choose. What about you guys? Script?
At least you get Henry Cavill. So.
Yeah.
I absolutely would go with Zack Snyder's over any of theirs.
I mean, but it's really just like, what do you want, a bed of coals or a bed of needles to lie on?
Well, better.
I'm sorry.
With JJ, it's a bed of dirty needles. But, I have to go Snyder. I do have a slightly more trust of Snyder and what his vision is versus JJ, because JJ has had every advantage one could think of, and he still manages to basically come across as a leech.
Well, and I see it as like the Snyderverse is not unfixable. Like there's still elements and things you can use from it. It's just you got to get other people involved. Snyder can't.
Well,
be
exactly.
Yeah.
And Mikey and I had that talk a year ago, and I found it interesting. That was one of the things where we absolutely saw eye to eye. Is that it's the lesser of two evils.
You're breaking up again, Gary.
it does seem to be the lesser of two evils in that, you know, it boggles my mind that here we are at this point in time, and you have someone like a J.J. Abrams that can't get something done at Warner Brothers. Every suggestion, every idea he's come up with has been bad. And I've heard the rumors that he's really not that into it. But the thing is that this guy has an influence with a lot of the people who he's given, you know, jobs to in the industry who are now controlling or running franchises themselves. And it's just all been bad, in my opinion. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the people that have come through working with him, you know, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I mean, it's just him and his people have just done damage to Hollywood, period.
I will say this, though. If you had a good Superman script that wasn't written by Chris Terrio
or David Goyer,
and it was a really good Superman script, Superman, I would actually give it to J.J. Abrams before I would Zack Snyder. Because I feel deep down inside, JJ would visually capture Superman better than Snyder would. Now, if you gave me a good Batman script, I would give it to Snyder before I would give it to JJ.
The only way I would
use it to get John Carpenter out of retirement.
Oh, right. No
the
shit.
only way I would give it to JJ is if you could guarantee that he wouldn't monkey with the script.
That's my point. You have to give him an already pre-made. This is it. Go shoot this shit script. Same thing with Batman and the.
That's right, because that whole thing with the King and Queen of Krypton. That is, I'm never gonna let him live that one down. I'm sorry, I'm never gonna let him live that one down.
Kryptonian, yeah.
No, I get you there, and that's my point exactly. Is
you're a petty person, Keith.
These guys are, and that was kind of my point. Is both of them are great visual directors, right? Like they can both.
Well, they should be cinematographers. They shouldn't be directors.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I mean, I still can't get over the fact that they have a scientist like Jor-El being able to beat in hand-to-hand combat General Zod.
Oh, I hated
come on,
that.
Man.
Why do you think I rewrote that movie? Rave Girl's in the house and says Batman is my favorite superhero, but there is more to DC. Zaslav wants a clear, coherent vision of what DC can be, especially since he's cleaning house. Yes, I think that's kind of the case. But I know, Script Doctor, you had a few reservations with this as well. Did you want to put those here, or did you want to save those for after the Super Chats?
Well, I mean, the reservations I have is the fact that there's no one out there who can fill the role that Zaslav needs. Well, actually, there's one person that could probably help build it, but I do know for a fact that he won't run it, at least for very long, and that's James Gunn. But we'll get into that after some of the Super Chats.
Right, and he's somebody they've been really courting and wanting to. But again, he's one of those guys that just wants to do his thing and then move on to the next thing. And if some intrigues him, that's fine. He's just fine working in his little Suicide Squad universe, it sounds like to me.
Well, his Suicide Squad universe is basically him mocking the Snyderverse. If you realized it. Which is fine. But the other part too is because he was so intimate with Marvel and he was basically in charge of the cosmic side of things for that franchise, which ended up being basically thrown out with the bathwater when they fired him. He knows how to build the infrastructure for it. But again, just like with Jon Favreau, he is a writer, director, creative guy. He might say, yeah, sure, if you give me a couple of shows or a feature film or whatever, I will help you build the infrastructure for a Marvel Studios version for DC. But I can't be the guy at the head because I have to be the creative team that does that thing, which is fine. Like, he could probably make a really good program, but I don't know. Again, Warner Brothers, there's still enough people left there and enough people to influence Zaslav that Warner Brothers will never look in the right spot to find the people they need to fill.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying with James Gunn too, exactly. And that's the thing, is they need to find somebody who is, I mean, a lot like a younger Kevin Feige in a sense, that has this, somebody who can see the DC universe as a whole, see the potentials with it, put it all together, put together a few different phases just like Kevin did initially, figure out how you're going to introduce these characters, do it on a budget, because now you got a situation, but you also have another tool at your disposal that Kevin didn't, and that was HBO Max. You know, and Zaslav will be more than happy to facilitate that, sounds like to me.
Well, Warner Brothers is in a good position where if they decided to basically just do a hard line in the sand and be like, okay, after all of these productions, every single take and iteration of the characters we've done is over, What we're going to do now is we're going to start a new feature franchise, and we're going to pair it with a streaming service. We're going to pair it with a show on HBO
on the
Max.
streaming service, and that's kind of what they said they wanted to do anyway. So,
well, it's basically what Kevin Feige was trying to do with ABC Network, and he wasn't able to pull it off because ABC and all the co-productions companies did not want to spend the money needed in order to do that. That's why only the first two seasons of Agent of Shield actually connect to the MCU, and then after that, it completely goes off the rails.
right.
He tried and it basically failed. But now when you have HBO Max, Disney Plus, for lack of a better term, Paramount Plus, and Peacock, they're willing to throw in the budgets required to pair up with a tentpole film. And Detective Comics have definitely got all the characters there where they could totally build that up. Like, you could do a more current era take of Lois and Clark Superman from the early 90s and do it in modern day, and then lead it up to a big tentpole Superman film that hits theaters. And then say 100 days later, it goes on. It's the season premiere of it's the episode that's the season premiere of the next season on their HBO Max thing. So even if you don't see it in theaters, you still get to see it after a very long theatrical window on your streaming service, and it just plays right into the rest of the smaller episodes.
Well, here's the other thing. DC fortunately has three characters that can almost become their own brands or their own universes, film and television wise. There are enough characters with Batman that you could take that character and shove him off, kind of like what Matt Reeves has wanted to initially do, and do nothing but stuff related to Batman, both the Batman family and all of the villains and characters. You could do the same thing with Superman and, to a lesser extent, even Wonder Woman. You have all this other stuff, though, that you can also bring in to create a different side of DC. What they were doing with Red and Red 2, to a lesser extent, the Losers and all that stuff, while they did not make a lot of money, those were original ideas from DC Comics. You could do that with a lot of their World War II type stuff. The Blackhawks being an example. You could do Sergeant Rock. You could do Creature Commandos. You could do all that stuff, even the original version of the Suicide Squad, and push that over into its own thing. You could do a whole sci-fi area for DC also because of all the characters they have over there. You could separate the entire fourth world and make it its own thing. And
you could do a New Gods show.
Yeah, you have 4 separate franchises, and that's just me talking off the top of my head, is how much material they have. And you have to, anybody that comes into this, while I do respect Kevin Feige, I don't think he knows everything about Marvel, but he is the smartest guy in Hollywood right now. He's the only technical fan. I think the only other fan you got there are just people that just happen to be either actors or writers. Henry Cavill, James Gunn, even The Rock himself. You can't do too much as far as putting those people in charge of a lot of this stuff for Warner Brothers. I think it's going to be next to impossible to find anyone that can actually run it the same way that Kevin Feige can. And I don't even think Feige, in my opinion, is going to stay that much longer. He's got nothing really left to prove. He's made all the money one could expect to make. He's broken records. Really, I mean, why are you still
Honestly,
there?
I think the only reason Feige's there is because they got rid of James Gunn.
True, but I mean, for how much longer? If he ends up coming up with at this point, everything's built up so much that if they end up having a movie that is a failure, that'll be enough for him to just say, I don't need to be here anymore.
Oh no, Marvel's going to end with Fantastic Four because they're not going to be able to do that right. Serious. Fantastic Four is a cursed franchise for film and television. It just doesn't translate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know that, like, with what the Russo brothers said, one of them said in his interviews, that they don't really have a plan, and they've been kind of winging it. And it really shows.
Phase 4 is what he was referring.
Well, Phase 4 is where Feige, and I've said this from the very beginning of Phase 4, that when you promote Phase 5 before you launch Phase 4, Feige shit the bed on this.
Because if you go back and look at all the previous phases, they've done exactly what they said they were going to do. This phase got thrown into a complete tizzy. And I think that Kevin got a smackdown by Chapek. And I don't think you're wrong, Keith. I think he's near the end of his game. And my prediction is that Taika Waititi will probably take over the Marvel Universe.
Which is
there's a good chance he could. I'm not saying it's the best idea. I mean, I
think it's going to really teeter on how this Thor film goes, but yeah.
Well, if he leaves, you're pretty much letting Victoria Alonso take over.
Well, that's who's left. That's my point, yeah.
Well, that's the only one who's been there as long as Feige almost.
Although that could be the person who takes over too.
Well, she would probably be the one that helms things, and then Taika Waititi would probably be just the
creative
boy.
part of it. Yeah,
that would be bad news for the MCU. You would definitely see the MCU just melt down.
Oh, absolutely,
meltdown.
I mean, it just will, because again, like a lot of people knew that they were heading in the direction of basically space of all the space stuff for the MCU. And as soon as James Gunn was fired, they couldn't do that anymore. And
they had nobody.
And the other part too, which is kind of shocking, and a lot of people were really thrown by this, is the fact that they started off strong with these characters, and then they pretty much skipped over 40 years of content and jumped into the 90s era.
Yep.
And now they have nowhere else they can go. And as we get closer and closer to each later reveal of a Marvel film, we're kind of seeing that the plan is not so much to rely on these characters that built the Marvel Comics brand, but to basically have our own reinvention of them, so that we can have pretty much a 99% control of all the merchandising and sales and all other ancillary profit.
Well, yeah, because
from that.
You were on when we were talking about that previously too. That Feige wants to get rid of all the licenses, the major.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason they're jumping on these characters more than anything. Licenses. Sorry, you're cutting out again, Gary.
That's okay.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying. You're saying basically the same thing I was going to say, and that is, this big jump in the Marvel universe had more to do with them getting past all the characters that they could possibly lose or have to share license with, as opposed to them actually trying to do anything story-wise. And I agree with you, Script. It's going to bite them in the ass in the end, and it has been. We've seen the results already with the Eternals and with Shang-Chi
and with Black Widow.
And Black Widow to an extent, yeah.
And the other part, too, is that, again, this is the other, and I mentioned this before, if Zaslav really wants to change Warner Brothers and Detective Comics films, he has to look at the peak that Marvel was at and measure himself against that, and not have to measure himself against the current. Because if he measures himself against the current, it will be relatively successful. But when it comes to the end of the day, it's not going to have the cultural impact in the same way that Marvel did at its peak. And if he's smart enough and realizes that, he knows he's pretty much going to have to eventually consider cutting his losses, because it's going to be very, very, very difficult to reshuffle, reorganize, and apply a brand new tone over what has been established already to be reconciled with it, because anything that they do would impede potential sales, resell value of the stuff previously, because it's going to be so tonally different to what would be current, that it would be better just to say, all right, cut our losses, start from afresh, and here's the consistency that we're going with, so that in 10 years you still have copies of, like right now, even with Marvel Studios, they're still making bank off of the first 3 Iron Man films, the first few Captain America films, all of those movies that are prior to Endgame. They're still getting pretty good numbers on video on demand plays and on physical media.
Video Life,
and Video Life, compared to what anything's going to be happening with the current DC films that have already
with that said, though, Script, I mean, this brings us to the one person we've not talked about at all on this is Jon Favreau. And
I keep losing you, Gary.
Does he have any?
Gary, I don't think Favreau. Here's the thing.
Favreau's along for the ride at this point.
He's I think. Okay, you got to go back to what happened during Iron Man 2 and the fallout that kind of happened, and it was all a bit. We don't know what happened. We know that he was willing to come back to play
Happy Hogan.
Happy Hogan. But outside of that, he has not returned as a director, a writer, anything. I don't know what happened behind the scenes there with everybody that Iron Man 2, if they blamed it all on him or what the deal was.
Which is ironic because it was Disney that wanted Iron Man 2 the way Iron Man 2.
Well, and this is kind of okay. So this is do take this with a grain of salt. This is the loose version I heard. Basically, was he had his version of Iron Man 2. Feige pushed for the version we got. It turned out the way it did. He said if he's not going to have creative control, he does not want to direct any more films. But he has no hard feelings with the Marvel people. That's the version sense. I've heard. Yeah.
Well, the rumor is that it was Favreau and Perlmutter on the side of doing Demon in a Bottle, and it was Iger and Feige that didn't want to do the alcoholism because they had just made Disney the owners of Marvel Studios, and Disney is a family company, and they're not going to deal with alcoholism, and that was the biggest point of contention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason
they'll do grooming.
But,
jeez.
But the biggest point was that Favreau was like, okay, well, well, he didn't really want to leave. He was kind of ejected, and Ike Perlmutter said, no, you're not getting rid of him. This guy built this universe for us. And they negotiated that he stays on as Happy Hogan, and that he does have the opportunities if he ever wanted to go back to Marvel, but he hasn't. And somehow, he did a couple of his own independent films, and then he got into Star Wars. And I think he's just basically along for the ride, waiting it out until there's a regime change before he can do anything. Because there's a lot of people in Lucasfilm that are very much against to the type of stories that Jon Favreau likes to tell.
Mm-hmm. I think Jon Favreau would be a great choice to add to DC. I don't know about running it, but he'd be an incredible talent to add. And he'd
be great for Green Lantern.
He'd be fantastic for really, he would be great for the entire cosmic or space side of DC. Like I said, it's a deep, deep, deep bench that they have over there. And he would be great for doing something like Green Lantern. And I know it makes people cringe when I say this, but James Gunn would be great for Space Cabbie.
Well, and the thing with Favreau is if he wasn't already so embedded over at Disney, and if the stuff we've heard is to be believed, I'm sure Favreau would have been somebody they would have considered for the Feige role over at DC. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I want to get through some of these super chats, guys. Even though you guys, this has been a great conversation, and there's a lot to because just like Warner Brothers, there's lots of layers, like an onion. There's lots of layers to get through on this whole situation, as well as some great stuff from you guys in the chat. And the film says Matt Reeves needs to go to Azkaban and never be let out. I don't know about that harsh, but I was not a fan of the Batman, that's for sure. Rave Girl says, does the industry view the Batman as a flop? Now, I don't think the industry views it as, just what I've heard from inside, and it kind of sounds like Mikey heard similar, was just that they were disappointed by its
because there's a lot more money spent than what they're showing on the budget.
I'll pretty much say it this way: Warner Brothers won't admit that it's a flop, but Disney's pretty happy it didn't break $1 billion. Sony's really happy it didn't break $1 billion. Paramount's really happy it didn't break $1 billion. The rest of the studios know what it is. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a flop, but it's definitely on that edge of flop. Like it hasn't fallen over yet, but it did not do what it should have done.
Right.
Because Batman is on par with popularity of Spider-Man, and it should have.
And that's just it. This movie was only 15 minutes longer than the last Spider-Man movie, so they expected it to make $1 billion. And
then not only that, even with their coercion with some of the theaters to gas up the price of the ticket sales, and it
didn't
still
even help
cross $1 billion. That is very telling. So you have to remember that.
So in reality, the movie only did probably closer to like 500 million.
I would say 600, but
maybe 600, yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you try to do a superhero version of Seven with Batman. I mean, that's pretty much what they were doing.
What's in the box?
I wish it was a superhero version of Seven with Batman, because that would have been far more coherent. What we got was,
well, this movie had the same.
Someone who watched Seven basically on TV, and then said, "Yeah, I can probably do that."
Well, and that's the thing. I think this movie suffered from the same problem Man of Steel did. And I know the guys who love the dark gritty superhero stuff are not going to like when I say this, but I'm sorry, Batman and Superman should be able to be watched by 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's truth. It just doesn't work otherwise. I had to drag a 7-year-old screaming and crying out of Man of Steel after the first few minutes because it was too scary.
I think if you
Man of Steel, I'm like, this is supposed to be fucking Superman.
if you can find a way of doing for Batman and basically doing the Denny O'Neil version of Batman, I think that's more of a 4-quadrant movie than anything. Because you will have all your Batman fans come to that.
Well, I mean, we kind of got a little bit of that with Christopher Nolan's take on him.
Yeah, but you got a little bit of it. But if you do the whole combine with James Bond thing, but he's also Batman, have the international travel, have all of that, and lighten it up a little bit,
Yeah.
you could have that. It could be something. But I mean,
And
that's
you could
going
even
to take
do a
someone that
grittier-
understands that.
You could do a grittier Batman movie. I don't mind that. And that's the thing is, and this is just off kind of the cuff, but I've said this before. And since they have HBO Max, they should almost utilize it in the sense that you could get in and do on a budget, say, a couple different directors who want to do different little short films based around Batman. They could be set in
Right!
the era, anything they want to do with it. You could see like Tarantino doing like, a little bit more 60s style Batman.
Yeah.
You could see Robert Rodriguez coming
yeah.
in and doing like a 1930s or 40s noir Batman. You
Hell
can see
yeah.
all that. You just kind
Rodriguez
of
would do
play.
a 70s grindhouse Batman.
True, you
That's
got a
what
point there,
Rodriguez
but that's
would
what I'm
do.
saying. You have like a little bit of every era of Batman, just somebody come in and do their own little play on it. Even if they're just little 60-minute movies or something like that, that'd be fun.
So basically,
Well, this falls
we're
into what
suggesting.
Heath
Go ahead.
and I have talked about bringing it back to TV as a series.
Well, yeah,
It's
it
just
makes
like
the
with
most
Bond.
sense.
If Bond should be a series, and we need to do the same thing with Batman.
Well, one of the first conversations I had with Gary over at Nerdrotic, because we both sat we're sitting there talking, and we're like, why hasn't Warner Brothers just realized that, considering how low of a budget you can make it for, just basically do a live action series that's in the vein of the Batman animated series. It would be so easy to do, and it would be the #1 fucking show on television. Everybody would watch it if you did it right.
Well, I mean,
But-
it's easy in one aspect, but you're looking at basically 25 days per episode to shoot.
Well,
which
even
is
if they do
too
it as a
long for
limited
television.
kind of series, I mean, still.
I would agree
But
with
if you
I'd
shoot it
say,
more as like
you
a
know,
Batman noir, which that's what I'm saying, you could do it on a lower budget.
Well, they could do it with the BBC's Sherlock formula, which is basically just 3 90-minute episodes per season.
Or
And
that works
They're
too.
isolated stories. As much as I love Denny O'Neil, I think Len Wein was probably a bit more in touch with what Batman was as a character overall. But there's definitely a hybrid between that. But I would, again, the thing that's going to make Batman sell well, and if you want to do it for television, is it's not just the story, character, and detectives. It's when things actually get really serious and Batman has to fight his way out, and those require a lot of clever choreography that has to be unique, and it can't be a paint by numbers stuff that what you see normally on CW shows. And that's what's going to make the production a lot longer, because you have to specify every fight scene, and you have to make sure that every episode that you're doing, the fight scene is unique to that episode. And when you're dealing with a television budget, even if it's on the streaming side of things,
Yeah, so you got to have a
you're
really
not
good
going to be able to convince a
choreographer.
studio. You're not going to be able to convince a studio to spend the time required on basically a 3-minute action set piece.
And that's where Gary and I said, and we considered the budget, right? That's where we said you do it more as detective style Batman, not as much of the big grander esque type stuff. You keep it more grounded. But no, they could do it. But I get what you're saying, Script, and that goes earlier with what I was saying before, which is why we don't get, the lower level character movies and the lower level budgets, because you get the executives are like, well, I don't know who this character is, so you got to get a star in it. So there goes your low budget film right there. Right, because no matter which way you cut it, there's always a way you got to sell it.
Which means we need more people in studio, like studio heads or executives that are real executives, not just given the title executive, to basically get it back into the mindset of we're going to create a star as opposed to we need a star.
There you go.
And that can happen. And it used to be that way with these movies. I mean, Tobey Maguire's a star because of Spider-Man, right?
Yeah,
like
he was an independent actor.
I mean, Michael Keaton was a semi-star before Batman, but he was a fucking mega star after Batman. it was kind of almost a joke at first, but then everybody realized, oh shit, these guys ain't kidding. This is going to be a realistic Batman movie, and this guy nailed it. So no matter what you say, it still made him a huge star. But you're right, Script. These kind of things can build stars, and they're still doing that to a point, especially at Marvel. But yeah, on that point, Hillis Mallory says, "Goodbye, Ezra. Hello, New Flash. Wally West." Well, you're probably not very wrong.
That's too quick right now. Yeah.
Here's the other thing, though, about bringing in Wally West. It's the same problem I have with Spider-Man, which is this whole thing about bringing in these newer characters shows that people aren't getting what they need out of the characters that originally brought those characters into comics. Okay, to me, I don't see it as being one versus the other. The Flash, almost like Spider-Man, has an incredible history. And there are a lot of characters wrapped up in all of that. If you continue to play one against the other and not see that having it all together is a good thing, then you're going to continue to divide your fan base and not make as much as you should. I see Wally as being a part of the overall universe and not being the head of it. Yeah. Wally cannot carry it. Even though a lot of people grew up with Wally, in the overall aspect of the story, he's not the lead. He's a part of the story. He's not the lead of the story. That's the reason
why I don't think they'll bring Miles Morales in anytime real soon either. At least not to lead off Spider-Man films.
Yeah.
But Alec Campbell says the end of the movie star, that is... the movie star is technically over. We brought that up before, but that's not the way that the corporate executives think. That's why I brought that up.
No, there's a big section of Hollywood that still thinks it's 2002.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my point. But we got our first real good look at the Batman outfit here. Not too shabby.
Whoever took this photo, if you take a look at the cowl, whoever lit that is probably fired.
I don't think this was supposed to leak out, actually.
Well, I mean, regardless, like these are concept shots, right? So this is for scanning and cinematography and digital compositing. You take a look at the mouth opening on the cowl, and it doesn't look proper because there's 3 different angles of shadow, which there shouldn't be. So whoever shot this,
I don't know if it's real or not.
Losing a job if this is real.
But it does match up with some of the other photos we've seen, so it could be somebody's rendering of it too. Script on that.
Well, yeah, scroll up. Wait, why is it only the...
They don't have the head. I don't know. Then somebody went and put Michael Keaton's head on it. That you can tell that was done digitally.
Okay, because I saw the full shot with the head. That image there that does not look
I think
right.
Somebody did that.
You think that's a digital composite?
I think this is actually either on like a stuntman or something like that, so that's why they cut the head off. Does that make sense? Yeah. If this is a real picture.
Yeah.
And I think that somebody just, got leaked out or whatever. Because all this
digital composite on it,
just to show what it would look like. But we've already seen what it looks like in other pictures. I've had other pictures shown before, but this is just a real nice look at the suit ish. It's kind of dark, but
I wish they gave him the gold belt.
Yeah, there's aspects of it I don't like. I'm missing the bat webbing at the top. I liked that better when they had that on the cowl. I don't like all the stuff they added to the gauntlets here. And I agree with you. It needs the yellow belt to break it up.
There's a reason why the comics the superheroes had like trunks on the outside and whatnot. You need contrast, and you also need definitive line points to show action, and you don't get that in a onesie.
And as far as like the makeup of the chest area, it's kind of an amalgam between Batman 1 and Batman Returns. You got
Batman Forever.
Little bit, but more so like because you had the basic, bodybuilder body look in the original one where it was just flat, didn't have any, fanciness to it. Then the second one, it was all like that edge deco look to the outfit. So this kind of looks like a combination between the two. I still wish they used the original webbed bat feet on the bat symbol, though. I like that one. That's me personal, though. I hate it when they changed it back to the other one. I'm like,
Well, the web one didn't sell well. That's why.
I know. That's what I heard. But you know why they keep changing the bat symbol? And this was
they recopyright them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the other part. I mean, even the copyright on the original one still got a good 6 or 7 years before. Yeah. Or the trademark on. Yeah, the trademark is forever, but the copyright is a few.
Yeah, they change it every few years though, just so.
And then each now one has Batman's got this gold outline around his symbol.
And they also want to have a unique one for each production as well. Mr. Grant Gregory says, "Hail, Tom and panel. Heading off to my rehearsal. Hail." Well, congratulations, Grant. Hopefully everything goes off with a hitch,
Yeah.
getting hitched.
Have fun on the rehearsal.
Marriage is cool.
Yeah, that's what Keith says.
Sort of.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
If you find the right lady, I'm sure it is. Nephilim says, when will WBD move on to Lucasfilm Screen Tech?
They're building them right now.
Yeah, I think all of Hollywood's been trying to get into that.
I think there's one out in Burbank. Just
I was gonna say
southwest
Mikey's not here right now, but he was talking about stuff like that. How they're investing in a bunch of them out there. Sorry, go ahead, script.
Oh no, like almost every studio is building their own stagecraft. I think Warner Brothers has one in Burbank, southwest of their main lot that they've done construction on.
Yeah, I'm assuming each and every one of the studios, and if not, they're going to be opening a bunch of what do you call them?
Stagecraft stages?
Independent ones, yeah, that you can hire out and
There's
stuff.
also there's a number of independent ones that have also.
I'm trying to think of what I was trying to think of what it's called, but
most of the independent ones aren't even in California. Some are in Florida.
I think I was thinking of the word stage because that's what they call the big,
Well, it's called stagecraft because you can craft the stage to any.
Yeah. Well, studio, stage. That's what the word I was looking for. But yeah, but not studio in the sense like Warner Brothers, but studio in the sense like Pinewood. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. But you know what I mean. Okay. Adam Wolford is here, and he says the two DC characters you could do on the cheap: Green Arrow and the Guardian. He is like Captain America. Also, Nightwing for about 70 million.
You know what?
They're doing Nightwing on Titans right now, and it's terrible.
God.
Script's not wrong. When you do these big set pieces, like great examples, that big end set piece at the end of Batman, the new Batman movie, that probably costs the most money in the whole movie. And 90% of that is all CGI shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's just because it costs so much for animators and all that business and rendering it out and doing all this and that and the other. Then it depends on if they did an actual 4K or not and all this other shit. So yeah, like that stuff all starts to add up and cost money. And that's where I was saying you have to do something that's on a very grounded level. Daredevil is a great example.
Yeah.
You can do Daredevil mostly on the cheap, yeah.
And Daredevil was done a little bit on the cheap, but all those fight scenes were 2-week rehearsals.
Right. Well, you have that aspect.
They took a long time for it, and it did upset a lot of people at Marvel who are fronting some of the bill on that Netflix show because they're like saying, "Why is this fight scene taking so long?" It's like, well, it's a one take, and we got to make sure it's just right, and it's really important to the show. And it ended up becoming a staple for each season is they'd have that long one take fight scene, but they did not improve with every subsequent season because they had to have a shorter turnaround time. That's the same thing. You cannot do a Batman, a Green Arrow, or a Nightwing show and not have some sort of combat in it because you're going to disappoint a big section of your fans. So that's already guaranteed. And when you realize that you have to factor that into the budget, you realize that your show is going to be a little bit more expensive and have a little bit more development time than the normal schedule for a streaming series or a television show.
Well, I'm curious what the budget
scares the hell out of studios.
I'm curious what the budget on the Peacemaker is, because that is pretty low level stuff, and that's probably the minimal right there to answer your question, because that has action.
The action set pieces are primarily gun oriented, so there's not a whole lot of stuff they had to really do out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're really kind of, because even the CW stuff, they still spend about how much roughly on those per episode script? Would you say?
Well, the actual production is between $2 and $3 million, I think.
Okay, so
it's ridiculously cheap, and a lot of that stuff is amortized over and over again. So
right.
They'll sometimes end up shooting 3 episodes in one location on one day, and then they just kind of split the budget through some really dubious means on the accounting side of things in order to get the money that they needed to finish off their episode.
Well, you know what I kind of noticed with Peacemaker, and let me know if you guys noticed it too. A lot of their expensive CGI stuff they tried to save for the last 2 to 3 episodes.
Well, that's what a lot of them will have to do, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to do that, because up until you started getting into the latter half of that, all the episodes that came before, as you were saying, Doctor, that they became they were more based on character interactions, gunplay, minor stuff that was kind of easy in-camera stuff to do. And as you got further into the story, you're building up to something. I think if you had worked it to be more like that, you could do a lot more of this more grounded hero stuff that you could have on any of the DC shows, like a Nightwing. You could work your way to that, although Nightwing is kind of a bigger hero anyway. Being
He's similar to Batman, so you'd have to have a similar budget.
Yeah, you would need to find other characters. I still personally would like to see a Bumblebee and Guardian film television series, because that would be, first of all, it'd be different. These are completely different heroes. You wouldn't need to spend as much unless, you add in the whole Bumblebee nature of her powers, but with the Guardian, it's all fight choreography. Green Arrow we've seen before. Didn't really hate it, but it also showed that if you have the wrong creative people leading it, that it was easy to flush it all down the toilet, i.e. season 3 all the way to the end of the series. So
Corley and Rogue does bring up a good point here. I just looked it up. Kick-Ass costs $30 million. So with inflation, you're probably looking at closer to $50 million now, which still is doable. And that has a lot
movie,
of
right?
Yeah, that's
very
a movie.
different.
Well, that's something Keith and I
Kick-Ass doesn't require the frequency of being a weekly dropped episode.
Yeah,
and it's something Keith and I have talked about previously on our show, about how these films need to start thinking about their budgets and keeping them as low as possible. And again, one of the best ways to do that is finding up and coming stars, film and or television.
I see people asking things like, what about the Huntress? Let me tell you something. All of those people picked up for the Birds of Prey that aren't Margot Robbie are gone. Okay? So there's look, recasting is going to be real easy. If you really want to do
expect
if you want to do the Huntress would be great if you make her like the comics. If you want to do Black Canary, make her like the comics. Yep. If you want to do any of those characters that they had outside of, again, Margot Robbie, if you make them more like the comics, you'll have greater success. That movie was just junk. That entire movie was junk. But,
the breakfast burrito scene is the only scene in the film worth a shit.
Black Mask should have been easy, and they ruined that too.
I still thought burrito shit was stupid.
I think Margot Robbie's only got 2 more movies left in her for Harley
It may
Quinn,
be stupid,
yeah.
That's the best part. Donnie, thank you, man. Hail to you, my friend.
And the film says, if Paramount wasn't run by fools, what verse could they create? A la Sonic. Is there room in the world for a third theme park world? DC Warner. Okay, well, first part, Paramount has a lot they could do, actually. They have Ninja Turtles, they have SpongeBob, they have all the Nickelodeon franchises that Nickelodeon owns outright. They have Beavis and Butthead, they have part ownership of South Park, they have all kinds of crap if they just dig into their coffers or whatever you want to call it, or their IPs, but they don't have anybody who knows how to do anything with it, and they work against anybody who does. Star Trek is another one.
God.
And as far as a theme park, hell yeah, they technically aren't they attached with Six Flags already?
Yeah.
Are they still with Six Flags?
I don't know.
They've sold their interest.
Because the National Amusements used to own it, so like that was the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. They owned King's Dominion, where I'm from in Virginia, which is just as big as the other Six Flags. It's but it's in Virginia, so they call it that. And they have the Rebel Yell, and it had all these DC themed rides as well as Warner rides, Scooby Doo, all that shit. But they are now licensing. They don't own these parks anymore. They sold them out and are licensing all the intellectual properties to the parks.
Yeah,
and
they did that over a decade ago. They got rid of
Yeah, I know they were more Warner related anyway.
So it's a huge mistake doing that. It really was.
Yeah, but no, all these studios could actually have theme parks like Universal and Disney do. Amen. They just haven't really utilized that possibility yet. The only other one, like we said, was the closest was Six Flags and their DC attachment. But No, and as far as the verses, I don't know if you guys have any other ones you could throw out there that I didn't already, but
They could try Transformers again.
well, that's Hasbro, but yeah,
I mean, well, the thing is, Hasbro still. I think Hasbro and Paramount still have their contract.
they're just continuing with what they did before. They're bypassing Bumblebee and going back to more of the same, from what I heard and saw.
Ugh.
Yeah,
You can say
By
that
the
again.
way, after finishing my GI Joe cover, I'm trying to push Tom into getting me to do something for your favorite property.
G.I. Joe.
Because GI Joe's gone. I got to do my one cover. And
Are you talking about Ninja Turtles, or are you talking about?
I want to
He-Man?
work on Ninja Turtles. I want to do covers and pinups.
Which version?
Well, the
Which
one
version?
that's going right now. The one that's going right now. That
You got to
Tom's
do one
working
that
on.
that
looks like the movie. Yeah,
looks like. Thank you. You heard me. Thank you. I just want a cover that looks like the movie.
We're friends for a reason, Tom.
Yes,
Jeez.
that's all I want. That's
Yeah.
all I want.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Which book are you? So you the IDW one then, or not?
Yeah, that's who I'm. I still work with IDW.
Yeah,
so,
because Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird can release up to
and
so
Tom,
many.
I think,
a
is
year.
killing it with the scripts on these things. I think he's doing a great job.
I haven't.
Tom
been
and I
keeping
go
up
way
with them,
back.
so.
We're friends. We've been business partners, and I really love Tom. He's, he discovered me as an artist, and I'm just so thankful to him.
You do a
and
cover
I
though,
was-
I'll definitely try and get a couple copies. I still got to get the last. Well, I don't think it's out yet. The last Ronin.
Well, what I'm probably going to get first is pinup, or an alternate cover. That's where I get lucky with Tom. He'll throw this at me, and I'll do it, and then they'll go, hey, he doesn't
one of
suck.
the few things I can actually draw is Ninja Turtle.
You know what? I would love to see if you could just do one cover, a special cover that's dedicated to the classic original Turtles. Almost in a Shaw Brothers style.
Oh, Shaw Brothers.
Yeah. Because that's the version that
Hey,
I'm
stop
a
making
fan
love
of.
to that microphone, Keith. You're fucking killing me.
No, but what you should let me do
You
is
sound
when
like
you
you
do
just
one,
loving
is
on
let me pick out some specific shots of the original Turtles, and I'll send them to you. Be like, do Badani like this, do Leo like this, do Raph like this, and do Mikey like like something in that vein. I don't know.
Here,
I don't know.
I'm
Just
gonna
that version
send
of
you
him is the
right
one
now.
that everybody loves. So, but yeah, no, I don't
gonna-
think you're wrong there, Nephilim. We got Goddess of Whim here who says if Mando, Boba Fett and Hans and Halo, have shown us anything on screen, actors want the face time and don't want to be just. Well, this is typical. In most cases, unless you get the very rare, what's his face who played Dredd. I always forget
Carl
his
Urban?
name. Carl Urban, who actually,
He was
gets
the best version. Yeah.
gets it right, like. Or the very rare occasion, yeah. Most of the time, these actors just want their face to be seen. You're not wrong with that. But here, I'll show the cover that Gary's working on here, real quick. Boom! There you go, kiddos. Cobra's getting his face smashed.
Yeah, the funny part for me is, and the person in charge of keeping everything accurate. When I drew this, it was a jet-propelled vehicle, and she was leaping off the wing. So 2 people have asked me, like, where is she jumping from? And I'm like, stop asking. Just stop
I
asking.
see you took my notes. Bigger boobs.
Oh, yeah, I went for that. The only thing I wasn't allowed to do was put the hood on Cobra Commander. That was it.
Yeah, and you're right, Goddess Room, especially with what you're saying here. A lot of actors, that's the whole point. And it's not just the actors either. That's the other thing. A great example is, you get an actor and they're like, well, we got this actor. We don't want to put him behind a mask. So that's usually the first thing they'll say when they get a Jack Nicholson or a Jim Carrey or someone like that they want to show off that they have them in the part, right? Great example of that was Frank Langella as Skeletor. It's like, yeah, this is the star we're selling the movie on, yet you can't see him. So a lot of the executives complained about that bit, but yeah, I don't know if Script has any examples or stories from his experience, but yeah, it kind of comes from both sides. But unless you get somebody like a Carl Urban who will actually fight for it, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get that.
Yeah, and somebody brought up Boba Fett is a prime example, but I think that was sabotage from day one. I think everything about that show was sabotage.
I don't know if it was sabotage so much as it was just thrown together at the last minute. But I don't know if Script had any response to this one or not, or did he?
I would say
away?
it's panic.
Yeah, well, that when it comes to Boba Fett, but I meant the Goddess of Whims super chat here.
Well, usually it comes down to, if it's not the actor, it's definitely the representation,
The
their
studio,
publicist, their agent, their manager saying, "Listen, you're paying us this much money. We want our guy's face on the poster at least." Or we.
Well,
want
on the
them...
other side of it, you had the Dread with Sylvester Stallone, where they couldn't get him out of the fucking helmet quick enough.
Yeah, even Stallone was willing to actually wear the helmet throughout the whole thing without taking it off.
But no, that was the studio saying, "No, we paid for Stallone. We want Stallone.
We want all. We're not paying X amount of millions of dollars for the bottom half of his face.
Yeah.
We want the whole thing." Was what they did, which is why they ended up rewriting the script so that he would be basically fired as a judge. Weird.
Yeah. So you're not wrong there, Goddess Win, but it's a nuanced answer. Valiant Renegade sends in $20. How you doing, buddy? Says y'all go sub to Pop Culture Minefield. Valiant Renegade endorsed, indeed.
I want to let you
Valiant.
know that the check will clear, Valiant. It will clear. Thanks, buddy.
Well, you already owe him 20 for just the super chat. Nikki D says, "Can't Warner Brothers just do a Donner-esque Superman with Cavill?" I wish. I
would
fucking
love
wish.
that.
That's what we want, and it doesn't have to be a carbon copy. It just needs to get that tone right.
Get
And
rid
that's
of the
the-
rubber suit. Throw him in something with some fabric. Get Cavill to finally reveal that beautiful smile he has. Get
We
him
just
charming.
need to understand
when you
what
sit
Donner
down and
did.
listen to him in interviews, man.
Well,
he
Donner
gets it.
understood what Superman was. He said Superman is Americana. He's apple pie. He's a Boy Scout, like you said earlier, Gary. And that's where Donner was smart.
He's
you
the
can't-
successful immigrant story of
Exactly. You
Americana,
can't
yeah.
change who Superman
He
is, but
said,
you can change the world around
very
him.
simply said, you have to write him as a Boy Scout. And if you alter that, he's no longer the character.
Well,
He's
and the
not
other
Superman
thing
anymore.
is, I think that the Man of Steel version, they allowed the modern times to change him. That's where Donner got it right. You can't change Superman. The world can change around him. You know, we got a 1970s world around Superman, but it was the same damn Superman that we've had before, or at least, you know, it was the Superman from the comics anyway, at least in a sense that, you know, Lois would sit there and ask him about what color panties she was wearing, but, you know, that was just a reflectiveness of the time.
They're
That doesn't
pink.
necessarily mean he needs to be like fucking snapping necks and fucking helping
Cashing
Zod
checks.
knock down buildings and shit, or destroying people's trucks just because
Oh, the
they threw a
fight scene
beer
at
at
the
him.
end was so fucking over the top and ridiculous.
Well, it goes against everything that Superman is, right? Like we know exactly how Superman should react. We've already seen this already. It's in Superman 2. That's the first thing he does is try to take the fight away from the city. So that's the first thing Superman should do.
Yeah.
Because like he says, and that's where Zod figures out his fucking weakness. It's people.
He cares for them like pets.
Like pets, I suppose.
Yeah, great line. Yeah, we can blame,
Which,
you know,
That's the
Christopher
other
Nolan
problem I
a
have with
little
Man of
bit,
Steel.
David Goyer.
Yeah.
But
Why in the world would
producers-
Zod want to make the Earth just like Krypton? That makes no fucking sense.
No, it does not.
You already live in a world where you're superior to every being. You can make them your fucking subservient creatures. And instead, I'm going to kill them all and start all over again. Dum, da dum, dum, dum.
That does rank as dumbness, only outdone by J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. You
Ooh.
came back in time,
Yes,
and
exactly.
you could stop.
You could have stopped it at any
Planet
time.
from being destroyed.
In fact, you had
Dad, you
plenty
blow
of
up
time. And you had the proof to show people that you came from the future, right? It's not like you're going to come in the room going, "I swear I'm from the future." No, you got like, check that ship out, motherfucker. You seen anything like that? No, exactly.
You
Now
seen
listen
anything
to
that
me.
big with that much technology?
I mean, had he been able to change their minds, they had this red matter that would have allowed the entire Romulan race to dominate the entire galaxy.
Oh, no, they didn't have that until Spock came.
Oh, yeah, until Spock came.
20
Yeah,
odd years
yeah.
later. So
Yeah.
but they had all their Borg technology that their torpedoes could penetrate shields like they were
Yep.
nothing.
Point is, they had plenty of time to prepare. And they had a futuristic ship at their use at the top of it all.
That nobody could stop.
Exactly. Like, they probably could have found a way to use the ship to stop the damn thing. Like, it was just, anyway.
They could have easily have taken out the Klingons, and Klingons would have not known what hit them. And
But the fact that he even has proof that he exists and been there, that could have started some kind of diplomatic proceedings as well. Right? Like, there's all kinds of places this could have went that makes no fucking sense. None whatsoever. But anyhow, I don't even want to get into Man of Steel because I'll be here all night bitching. The only thing I'll bitch more about is Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows.
Yeah, 'cause I hated that movie too, man. I really did. And that other film.
Oh God,
you're right.
Mega Wing Zero says, "No, you're fine. Icon would be perfect for HBO Max." Yeah, that's the thing. They could do a lot of these, and HBO Max quantifies, or whatever you want to call it, to where, like Script's saying, is you can't really do these on the cheap, unless you can amortize it in a good way. And at the same time, that's not going to do you any good unless you got good stories or what have you. And a lot of these characters that people don't know, that's a good way to introduce them.
You could embarrass the heck out of the people that are all about the message if you got Icon right for HBO Max.
Oh God, they would scream because Icon's a 200-year-old Republican.
Yes. But you know what? The ultimate story, especially if you do the entire story and get to the end, they wouldn't know what to do.
Teen pregnancy and keeping the kid and all that.
Yeah, but ultimately then finding out that the entire thing, once he leaves, he's been trying to leave, and you have the story as to where he's actually, in his own way, been training her to be the hero that the planet needs. She's the hero. He's the alien trying to leave. That's the ultimate end of the story. That was his whole thing. And so a lot of these woke people would throw a gasket because they wouldn't know how to react. It's like, he's a Republican, get the message. But he's a Republican, get the message. So Icon is just perfect. It would be enough to mess with them. But, that's just me.
I don't think they'd touch the character. Professor Gray says, what are the odds they just reboot with new actors?
Probably happen by 2030.
Yeah, that for sure. But if Mikey's to be
they're
believed...
going to finish with Zach.
Yeah, they'll have to finish off the stuff with Zach because they're not going to turn a gift horse away. Or slap a gift horse in the mouth, sorry. So yeah, they'll get as much money as they can out of that. They'll see the numbers, and then they'll say, okay, well, we've satisfied this niche group of a larger audience. Now we have to try and hit that bigger audience that Marvel managed to get over that 10-year period.
And that's if Kevin Feige hasn't either left or came up with the idea, because I know he's thinking about it. I think he's also reading the tea leaves. There's two directions to go with Marvel. You can continue down this path and eventually.
Are we talking about Marvel or DC here, Professor?
Yeah, we're talking
both.
DC.
But I mean,
in both cases, yeah, they'll eventually get it. But
you'll have to reboot it. Both.
Well, I can tell you right now, Ezra and Amber, their characters probably won't return after this. I don't think we'll see a Flash or Mera for a while. I take that back. They may recast Mera because they actually already thought about doing that. But I think the Flash is just going to be so far gone. They're going to do it as a one and done. And unless the motherfucker makes $1 billion, they're just going to write it up as a.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They'll recast. I think they'll recast. But I think that's where Marvel's headed anyway. They're going to have to recast. Look, you can't keep Steve Rogers on the sidelines. You can't. No matter how far they go with this, eventually you're going to reach a point where Steve Rogers will be back. Same thing with Tony Stark. You cannot keep Tony on the sidelines. Well, you're preaching to the choir
here. I was just saying this the other night. I'm sick of all these new characters, depending on if they're DC or Marvel, because to me, the main characters are the franchises. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can give me some spin-offs in certain cases, but in other cases, I'm not a fan of that shit. I don't give a crap about some third-tier character that nobody's heard about. I want Superman, not his fucking cousin Louis. I don't give a shit.
Yes, cousin Louis. And I want to say something to Script here. Look, man, until you've slapped a gift horse, it's nice. It's fun.
I guess it depends on if you're on that gift horse or behind it.
Well, one would be a spank, not a slap, so.
That's true. But yeah, Professor Gray, eventually they're going to have to,
right.
in one shape, form, or another. But as far as the DC universe is concerned, I think Zaslav's smart enough to try and keep Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, since they are fan favorites. Gal Gadot's safe. Godot, however you say her name. I always say it wrong no matter what
Godot.
I do. I know. And then Ezra is out of the picture. I guarantee it. Amber is most likely out of the picture, all depending on how this court case goes, and it's not looking good for her right now.
Jason.
Sadly, it's not looking good for either of them.
Not really, but it's looking worse for her.
Yeah.
I think Jason's safe. He can play Aquaman as long as he wants.
Yeah, oh yeah, Momoa's safe as fuck.
Yeah.
That's the only reason that second Aquaman movie is going to either happen one way or the other, no matter what.
He's your ambassador. He is your ambassador for fun. If I were Zaslav right now, and I think Zaslav is good friends with him, I would just have him out there just being Jason. I mean, you almost don't have to do too much.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why Hamada had talked about. He didn't specify who in his in the court yesterday, but he did say they were thinking and talking to an actress about recasting Mira. We all know who it is. We all fucking know exactly who it is.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because they'd worked together before and they, the chemistry.
They've got chemistry.
Exactly.
They've got chemistry.
She's cute as a button. She's cute.
So, regardless, I think Amber knows that she's on a fish hook right now, and it's starting to show. As far as that goes, I think those two are out the door. But Henry Cavill, if Zaslav is smart, will try and get something in line with him. I mean, as far as Mikey says, they already do, but I don't know for sure. I have not heard any concrete evidence. From what I've heard, his contract was up with the last Justice League film, and he's just been sitting there waiting to hear from them. And then they put all that bullshit out in the media about him being difficult to work with. From what I've heard, that has more to do with his representation than it does with him personally, because all the stories I've heard about him personally is he's one of the most gracious, well-mannered people that you can work with, one of the most professional. So
he had a very small window where he was not.
Who is his representation?
And he may have been. Well, his representation is the Rock's ex-wife.
That's
the Rock's
right.
ex-wife. I can't remember her name, but
so if they have a problem with the representation, they have a problem with the Rock too. So
well, and that's just it, and that's where Andre and I kind of think that something is going to get worked out, especially with the Rock being in. And that's the thing. Zaslav inherited 3 or 4 or 5 fucking DC projects that are done now. We've got Flashpoint, Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, I believe is done, and so is that what that is that the so I think we're getting both Shazam 2 and the Rock in
Black Adam,
right?
Yeah,
those are 2 separate projects.
2 separate projects because you're also bringing in a lot of other actors connected with Black Adam
and Black Beetle or Blue Beetle. Sorry, not Black Beetle.
Blue Beetle.
That's coming with Cholo, and then we have Batgirl. So that's 6 projects that are already technically done.
God.
Yep.
Plus,
and those numbers are going to be very reflective of the market, so you got to pay attention to them.
Plus, already supposedly in movement happening on the Joker 2, supposed greenlit the Batman 2. We know we have a continuation still going with Peacemaker and another spinoff coming off that, plus the Penguin show. So here we are creeping on all these projects.
And what about Shazam 2? Because I've not heard anything.
As far as I know, I think it's done.
Yeah, the Fury of the Gods is done. You have some big talent. Well, you have some great talent supporting all of this for your quote-unquote villains in the movie. And it's pretty much, I think, just everybody that was in the last movie that survived. And moving forward. I mean, look, there wasn't too much more you could do. It hit, I think, all the right things. Audiences that I know love it because it walks that. It walks
family friendly.
That's the big thing. It's a family friendly movie. I just think ultimately you can do a lot more with it. But that's just me.
What's to me is sad is that Michael Keaton has shot 2 performances as Batman already, and we haven't even seen one. I know. Dash Attack says, instead of waiting for Marvel and Disney to change, find new fantasy franchises. Dragon Quest, The Adventure of Dai, if I'm saying that right, or Day, is great heroes journey anime. Well, there you go. It seems like anime always has something for everybody. House Atreides is in the house and says, "Hail Mead, how about Ryan Reynolds running the MCU or DCU? If any has proven what fans want to see the superhero movies is Ryan."
I'd
Again,
hire him for advertisement.
I was gonna say, like, here's the thing: whoever is doing his stuff for like his advertising and certain things like that, maybe. But Ryan Reynolds himself again falls into the creative category where he's not, like, script says he's not equipped, or however you want to put it.
He has no interest in being in that area. Yeah. Maybe when he's like 60, he will. But right now, he still wants to be an actor.
And from what I've heard, they're just barely getting back to speaking terms after the whole Fox sale, because the rumor was that Ryan was not too happy with how Disney was kind of trying to push for a PG-13 Deadpool. And now the rumor is they worked things out to where Deadpool will be R-rated and his appearances in the MCU will be PG-13. So
works for me.
And I believe that's true because we all of a sudden started seeing him pop up as Deadpool again, which I don't think he can do that without their permission.
Well, he owns like 5 or 6 versions of that costume, so he can do whatever he wants.
He could do that, but I don't think okay, my point is okay, my main point is right after all this stuff was supposedly, like right after we heard that the things were finally signed and done and deals were coming through, and we actually had some people say that out in public, we got that trailer for Free Guy with him and Korg.
Yeah.
That's my point, is we actually had official stuff that, Disney would have had to sign off on to have it done. So that's my point, is I feel like they've made nice. But I don't think he's interested in running any kind of studio or franchise in that respect. I think he's more than happy to play in his Deadpool pool and not really go beyond that. Plus, he's getting another Free Guy movie, I think, too, from what I heard.
Yeah, he's getting a sequel to Free Guy.
That's great.
So he's got plenty of stuff he's working on, and I'm sure he'll be Deadpool as long as they let him, but he has zero interest in anything else. Mecha J says, which new DC movies do you see happening or wanting to under the new regime at WB? Good question. Mostly not anything they're coming out with. Outside of, I don't mind seeing Shazam 2 because I really did enjoy the first one, but that was like a fluke.
Anything that's not in production is not going to happen. I'm telling you that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's inherited those franchises that we brought up already, and there might be one or two that we missed.
The Gotham City Police show, the Penguin show, those things aren't.
Well, the Gotham City Police show is not happening, but the Penguin show is supposed to be happening. Script.
I don't think that's happening now.
We'll see.
I think when they realize what the price is going to be behind that,
you might be right.
And the basic arithmetic of what happened with the box office of the Batman, if they do it. I wish them the luck, but I don't see that being
I think they'll gauge it on how well Batman plays on HBO Max and HBO and the video sales. And if they don't, I think you might be right. Quietly, 3 months from now, we'll hear that it isn't going to go forward.
Colin Farrell is going to be focusing on other projects.
Exactly. Yep. I think you might be onto something there. But we'll see. We'll see. If it happens to sell well on video and give a boost to HBO Max and plays well on standard HBO.
There's always that possibility. Absolutely.
There's always that possibility.
You know what? Legion of Superheroes would be a good project if all things were equal and we weren't worried about the amount of money that could be spent. I would say Legion of Superheroes.
As long as Greg Berlanti's not working on it.
True. As long as Greg Berlanti has nothing to do with
it. Or
but
Jeff Johns. Fuck that guy. Hate that guy.
As a movie, you could make it for about the same price that JJ did his Star Trek for, and fill it with just unknowns and have a good time. I have a really good time. That's it. That'd be my vote.
Paulie is saying that Blue Beetle hasn't started filming yet. I thought it had, because I thought he was shooting it between seasons of Cobra Kai. If that hasn't started shooting yet, then that has, yes, Paulie, that has a possibility of getting shelved.
Yeah,
which would be unfortunate because I really want to see a Blue Beetle film.
I do too.
Well, if they make a Blue Beetle film that allowed you to incorporate all the previous Beetles, that'd be great.
All I know is they moved it up from being an HBO Max movie to a theatrical film, so that sounded like they had some confidence in the script and shit to me. So sorry, go ahead.
Likewise,
my bad.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying you have a history there of the character, and the story almost writes itself. And for all those people that complained or are missing the whole kind of balance of the relationship that you saw in the first in the MCU between Tony Stark and Peter. You could have that with Blue Beetle. Okay, you've got the characters to do that. Although I think it would be closer to being like their version of Batman Beyond. But it would give everyone what they wanted. Blue Beetle could be a much bigger property.
Well, and Paulie probably knows better than I do, but because I mean, he was all buffed up at the end of this last season here, so I thought he was shooting it in between.
Full, yeah.
But I thought maybe they did jump into season 5 a little quickly for him to be able to do. I thought they were already shooting and done with it. My bad. So yeah, if it hasn't been shot yet, then it does stand a chance of getting the axe. But if they had that much confidence in it before, maybe Zaslav will allow it.
Let's hope so.
Monkey Jeebus, you got something there. Planetary, I've talked about on our show. Planetary would be one of those HBO Max event shows that would be like Legion combined with Twilight Zone combined with the best parts of Twin Peaks and the few good episodes of Lost rolled into one. But that'd be me.
And on that note, Paulie just sent me that Susan Sarandon is set to play. This just come out today. Villain Victoria Cord in DC's Blue Beetle. So maybe that's a sign that they decided to go forward with it.
I hope so.
Bad idea.
Bad choice.
Bad idea for the character. Bad idea.
Well, we got one who says good idea, one who says bad.
I love Susan Sarandon. Why was she?
No. Susan Sarandon is an actress. Being in is great. The character, no.
So she's taking over for Sharon Stone.
Yeah, again, no.
I'd rather see Susan Sarandon than Sharon Stone.
That's like creating a character that doesn't exist. We've seen that one before. Or doing one very badly. You know, that's about as good an idea as the people who actually made the Batwoman television series telling you that what they had was a good idea. This is not good.
Or the version of Black Mask.
Yeah, if you're going to do this, do it. But if you're going to have a Cord in there, it should be Ted Cord. Not as the villain, but as the one...
wait, she said Cord?
Cord.
I thought you said Court with a T.
No, it's Cord.
Oh,
no. They created a brand new character and gave Ted Cord a sister, an evil sister.
Ted Cord's supposed to have an evil uncle.
Oh, God.
Okay, I'm telling you right now, guys. Everybody listen. Keith just face-palmed. I heard it.
Well, I think, was it Script is the only one who really hasn't said what he would want to see under the new regime?
I've got like 7 television shows I would love to do with Warner Brothers. So there's DC properties.
Name 1 or 2 for now.
Well, one of them would involve Vixen because she's an awesome character.
Oh yeah.
She has the power to channel the traits of animals of the animal kingdom. And it makes her very, very powerful and very dangerous at the same time. So there's lots to play with there. But no, I'm thrown off that they would give Ted Cord a sibling.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Because I thought it was Victoria Court, like Court.
Well,
it's Victoria Cord.
Oh God.
Well, the fact that they just announced that today sounds more like it is going forward then, since if they haven't started filming, as we heard from Paulie. So Paulie has good confidence in the film, so it'll be interesting to see. I know him and I both said that Sholo should play the part, and that he got the part. We were kind of excited by that. So on that note, we also have Stephen Otten, a.k.a. Deleted Scenes, who sent in a PayPal super chat and says, "Hail, Tom, Gary, Keith, Script, Mods, and chat. I'm down for Sergeant Rock movie, but who in present-day Hollywood can pull it off in front of or behind the camera?" Well,
we got robbed in the 80s, man. We really did, because we were supposed to get Arnold Schwarzenegger as Sergeant Rock and ended up with
I'm Sergeant Rock and my arms are hard as a rock.
You know, you could make that the cornerstone of a brand new
military
universe.
Yes.
Military universe. There are all kinds of ways you could go.
I'm going to fuck you up.
So, but you could have Sergeant Rock, and you could have the Blackhawks, and you could have...
Stop bringing up Blackhawks.
Oh, why did you say Blackhawks? Why would we have Blackhawks?
Oh, jeez.
You're obsessed with your Blackhawk.
I don't know why you're friends with me.
That's because we all get
It's all
along.
about
That's right,
DC.
easy company.
It's not about you. It's about all of us as people.
There are comics that Marvel did that for years, and I don't even think to this day they acknowledge that they've done. And this is why I said Warner is in a really interesting place right now with the DC IP. Because if they just go ahead and go into it with the idea to develop all of it, they could come up with some stuff that a lot of people don't even see coming. And really take advantage of certain areas that for whatever reason Marvel has decided not to do.
Don't see it coming like a Black Hawk.
Oh, jeez.
Get down.
Look out, the Black Hawk is shooting at
Get
us.
to the chopper. It's a Black Hawk.
Please. Save me, script doctor. What do you
That
think?
can work 2 ways.
I can't save you from this.
Dueling Arnold. Dueling Arnolds.
Oh, Lord, we're in trouble now. We're in trouble now. Yeah, script encourages my voices. Sorry, Keith.
Oh, well.
Yeah, you're shit out of luck,
Brando.
buddy.
Brett Cohen is in the house. How you doing, buddy? Sends in $5 Australian dollars. Says, let's ask the hard questions. Real hot fruit buns, hot X, what's hot X? Fruit buns with peel, the weak sultana version, or chocolate. Happy Easter to all.
No idea what he's talking about.
He's been watching the porn parodies, and that's all he's got. His head
that,
in.
or you know what? These are probably
I know Brett. That's how he thinks.
Australian products that I have no idea.
So real hot
about some
fruit
Vegemite,
buns with
mate?
peel. The weak sultana. I don't know. Sorry, I have no clue what's going on there. But happy Easter to you, sir.
Yeah, I'm wondering if those are Easter treats over in Australia, or are you just having some fun?
He wants to have some Marmalite. That's what he wants.
I want to take you seriously, but if you're just having some fun, let us know too. So
I can't pick Peeps. I will never pick Peeps. I don't know. It's Easter.
you know
Easter
what?
candy-
My favorite Easter candy I can't even find anymore. Palmer's used to make these peanut butter patty things. I can't ever find them.
Wow.
I like Reese's eggs.
Reese's
I just
are awesome.
fucking
The originals,
love 'em.
yeah. What about you, Script? What's your favorite Easter snack?
I don't eat candy.
Fuck you.
I knew there was something about you I didn't like. God,
Exactly.
man.
That's some sus shit right there.
Jeez.
Not even M&Ms. A man who don't even eat M&Ms or
I,
something like that.
how am I going to work with you, dude?
Wrong.
I can't fucking deal with this.
Oh, Latino slant. What? They're making her. Oh, no. That's even.
Cord's wife.
What?
Oh, gosh.
So Ted
Oh,
Cord
Cord
got
has a
married to a
wife?
horrible woman.
So yeah, Brett, if you're still out there, please verify what you mean here, because I'm not 100% sure, but
Cord's
I'm going to
wife?
assume that's what you're talking about. And then Vincenzo Santianello sends in $1. Doesn't say anything, just sends. I don't think he
Escucha
can see.
testidora.
Don't make fun of my friend. I like Vincenzo. Then he sends in another super chat. Holy crap! I think he meant. Well, maybe that's what happened. Is he mucked up and meant to say 10, and maybe your thumb slipped. Is that what happened? Oops. Either way, he sent in another super chat and says, "All I want is another Man of Steel soundtrack." Good God, Gertie, why would you want such a thing? The one thing the DCU got right was the music. Long live Zimmer. I have to disagree with you, my friend. I respect your feelings on this, and Andre would agree with you, but it's just wrong.
Yeah,
can't
if
stand the
you want
music,
another
I'm
Man
sorry.
of Steel
Yeah,
soundtrack, find
droning.
a train
If you want
station.
droning.
No, find a train station nearby and just sit there and listen to the trains humming through the tracks. That's the
Drone.
Man of Steel.
It's my problem with Hans Zimmer is the way it worked with Blade Runner 2049 because it required droning.
Yeah, and
like
it kind
he
of
did in the
matched
first
the
one.
original stuff that Vangelis had kind of done.
Exactly.
Yeah,
He doesn't know how to write a theme, an actual
Nothing that
theme.
you can
If
used
don't
to
know
be
what a
able
theme
to.
is- yeah, back in the day, but now it's just this weird thing that he does, and I so
again,
cut
and
off.
please.
And by the way, I
Vincenzo,
found out you and I agreed on the Batman because I said when I was watching it, the theme sounds like half of the Imperial March. Like the
that's
first
what I
note.
said.
Yeah,
I know.
Giac-
I found
Michael
out later
Giacchino
that
really folding it in this time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I and again, I'm not trying to make fun of your taste. If that's what you enjoy, that's great. But my big test is hum me Hum me the Man of Steel theme. Anybody, feel free.
You can't. If you can't hum it,
there we go.
Exactly. Well, you missed the ba-bum.
Oh yeah, that's how it starts with the.
it's important to remember those 4-note transitions to the droning.
Now hum the Williams theme.
And I am not making fun of you.
We're
for
all going to
liking
be
it,
here
but
forever.
I am
Going,
making fun of Hans Zimmer.
As long as you don't have anybody humming the Dune theme, you're good.
Which one?
It says Superman. Get the fuck out of my recording studio. That was the. I want that in a
All
show.
of the Superman themes from the early days with Fleischer to John Williams said Superman in the theme.
That's a true fucking story.
Even
Did
the
you guys
Lois and
know
Clark's theme said Superman.
Yes,
in the theme.
That's true. Did you guys ever hear that story? That's a true fucking story. John
What's that?
Williams.
Yeah.
John Williams is doing the score, and all of a sudden he goes, and he busts into Superman. Fucking Richard Donner busts out of the fucking office and goes, "Oh my God, it says Superman!" And John Williams turns around and he goes, "I'm recording." He's like, "I know."
Oh my God, Latino's going at me now, Polly.
So, because that's how Williams would show these guys is just the piano version first. Because even the other funny one was when Steven Spielberg thought that he was joking when he showed him the Jaws theme because he played it on the piano. Dun dun dun.
Because he was doing it on a piano.
Seriously. Yeah. He's like, no, you got to picture it with like, the bass going, brr, like he did the whole thing, it's like. So then he didn't realize it until he actually heard the score what it was going to sound like. And the same thing with Donner. He was just like, holy shit, like it's my song. It's the one I want. It's like perfect. And to me, that's the most perfect score for a film ever. It just captures.
John Williams. That guy, he is the composer of our life. I mean, he wrote so many scores from the late 60s through to the 2000s. That just
he did the Lost in Space score.
He did a lot of
television
back
under
in
the
60s,
name Johnny Williams.
Yeah.
He was a jazz pianist. And so he went by Johnny. He also did all the incidental music on Gilligan's Island.
I was going to say, he worked on a lot of shows in the 60s, I think, from what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
But he created that theme, man, for Lost in Space, and it still is absolutely one of my favorite themes to this day.
It is a very good theme.
He did both of the themes for Lost in Space. The first season and then the more jazzy.
Yeah, there is. It's the third season that changed. Season 1 and 2 had the same theme, and then they had the more mechanical digital sound at the beginning. And
then I'm sorry, but the Batman '89 theme from Danny Elfman did exactly what the Superman film theme did for that. It was just, it was like it was a match made in heaven. It was just like it was meant to be, and that theme carried over into the series.
Well, Shirley Walker worked with Danny Elfman,
and of course, they worked together. So of course, it seamlessly. That was one of the things that brilliantly carried over into the series, and it felt like it was still a part of the same theme and all that. And
it worked when Danny Elfman went and did The Flash. Even though
that was kind of
Batman.
It was Batman
kind of Batman
2.0, but
it was Batman in a red suit. Okay.
And you listen to and the same thing with the Dick Tracy soundtrack. Half of that sounds like Batman leftovers. But
yeah.
Well, I mean, the Batman stuff sounds very much like it's just a sibling to Beetlejuice when you listen to that.
A little bit, yes, very much so. You're not wrong there.
And the Beetlejuice soundtrack is fantastic.
Oh, balls, yes. And same thing with you listen to Pee-wee, you can hear the elements of that feeding into Beetlejuice, feeding into the growth of Danny Elfman that kind of died off with Spider-Man. That to me is his last good theme, personally. But I mean, he's probably done a few good things.
My one problem with Elfman is the big problem with his marches are they're so oompa 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 oompa. It has that standard oompa march, but I still love him. But that was the shortcoming of it.
What did you say, Script? Because I too was not a huge fan of Elfman's Spider-Man theme, but that's the last one that I can remember.
when Aerosmith did their cover of the classic.
Oh, you mean that?
Spider-Man,
Okay,
like,
yeah.
That
Well,
everything about that fits to the attitude of what Spider-Man
Yeah.
is, which is a nerd that's kind of like breaking loose into like kind of rock and roll and punk.
well, what pissed me off about the new film, speaking of that, is they didn't use the Ramones version of the Spider-Man theme in the third film. It was like,
Right?
Listen, I like the
What?
Ramones, but their Spider-Man theme is kind of just
I like
just
that. I'll be
ripping.
honest with you, and this is where you and I are going to disagree. I actually like their version better than Aerosmith's.
it's just them doing the Ramones, but
I
with
don't care.
Spider-Man lyrics. Like
It
there's
just-
nothing.
it's awesome.
There's nothing Spider-Man-y about
It's
it. But I mean,
simplicity of it. I don't know.
I'd
why.
rather just listen to regular Ramones songs.
I understand it's a matter of taste, my friend, but
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, because since you had the Aerosmith version in the original, Toby being in this one, and the fact that they had Ramones songs in the first two films, and I think this one even ended with a Ramones song, just not that one. I'm like, why didn't you just use the Spider-Man theme? You finally could use it here and do it. And like, I was just disappointed because they had like this whole Ramones thing going through the whole series because that's what he's listening to and shit sometimes. So I just thought it would have been more poignant, but that's just me. And with that, we are wrapped up with the super chats. And I want to thank all of the people for being here. And I didn't see Brent come back with anything. So in case I missed it, I don't know if Brent left us, but sorry. I think he just meant
He'll show up on our show tomorrow. So
I think he was just talking. And if somebody maybe from Australia is out there, maybe can just verify if he just meant like favorite Easter treats. Ords is in the house. How you doing, Ords? And I've seen a few other people hop in too. Thanks for being here, guys. We appreciate it. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Other than that, we will see you. Let's see here.
Later.
I think Script Eye and I are going to try to do an A-rated B movie sometime this weekend.
If schedule works out, yeah.
Yeah, we'll try and work on that. We'll let you know more about that. Outside of that, you'll see me roaming around other places, but I've got a lot of appointments to do, so I don't know how many places I'll pop into in the next couple days, but we'll see. But on that note, check out Script Doctor's channel. Check out the Pop Culture Minefield channel. Anything you guys got going on that you want to plug coming up?
We've got a show tomorrow. That's pretty much it. We have to talk about what we're going to talk about tomorrow because I'm not sure exactly because we've gone over so much shit this week.
Yeah, we have. You know what? I did just think of one thing before we go.
What's that?
Warner Brothers has Hanna-Barbera. They should go through and do their whole Hanna-Barbera thing, even if it is like a animated movie version of Future Quest, which would be a fantastic idea for Zaslav to go ahead and greenlight that. But
they have actually tried to start like the Hanna-Barbera verse a couple times now, actually, Keith. But go ahead, sorry.
But the comic book stuff that they ended up doing, especially with Future Quest, if you have not read that, you should read it. It is all of their adventure superheroes in one comic together. And let off with Johnny Quest and Space Ghost. So if that even remotely sounds interesting, Google that. Go to Amazon, pick up, because it's all in one book right now. I think Zaslav should do that. If I were talking to him directly, it's like, do that. Just do that.
Yeah, and the last time, as I recall, Tom, was when that I recall reading was John Kricfalusi, however you pronounce his last name, from Ren and Stimpy, was going to step in and start making Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and then that died with his controversy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I know like for a while now they've tried with Scooby-Doo a couple times to launch like a new.
Yeah, but the Scooby-Doo's not.
No,
I mean, it's all of the adventure heroes, the Herculoids, the Frankenstein Jr.
Oh, even people.
Oh man, I love that show.
The other day.
I think if they took that comic and used that as the basis of a brand new animated movie to put out in theaters, that would be it. Johnny Quest, Space Ghost, Herculoids, all of it. That'd be great.
All right. Well, with that, Gary, was there anything you had to plug on the way out the door?
I love you, Paulie. That's all I got to say, man. I love you, Paulie. You're just messing with me all the time.
Checking out your back door.
And Brett Cohen is here. He said, I get it, Americans have 50 flavors of Coke, but not hot cross buns. Hot cross buns sounds like the name of a new porn. That's all I got to say.
Penises and weirdos. Got to get duct tape to cover up the bone.
Oh man.
And fuck off you. I love your name, man. That's a cool name.
Dude, trying to fuck my back door.
Oh no.
That's it. CCR's coming to get you. They're Sue happy, bro.
Ding, 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 ding.
They even sued their lead singer because
Yeah,
his
well, that
solo
was that
album
idiot
sounded
who
too much
owns
like
all
him.
the shit. Yeah, well, that's actually more because that guy who they signed with or whatever owns all their music, and he ended up suing them because. Yeah. And that's a funny and interesting story. But we're gonna check out of here, kids. Thank you so much for being here. Peace.
I say we break into the place, trash the office, and make off with the records and say it was industrial espionage.
I thought my jokes were bad.
Well,